Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Amityville Union Free School District Board of Education meeting. Today's date is May 14th, 2024. And today is the combined meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order now at 5:35 p.m. Present at the meeting is Lisa Johnson, Board President. First Vice President Carol Seehoff, Second Vice President Megan Messman. Our trustees that are here currently are Chris Nairn, Caroline Fanning, Winnie Canestro, and it's anticipated that Leslie Kretz will be arriving shortly. Also in attendance is our Superintendent, Dr. Talbot, our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Dr. Bridget Waite, and it's anticipated that our Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operation, Ms. Olivia Blessing, will be arriving shortly, as well as our Assistant Superintendent for Critical Instruction, Ms. Mary Stevens. Also present is our counsel, Lisa Hutchinson. The time is now 5:36 p.m. Can I have a motion to enter into executive session for advice from counsel regarding particular person's employment history, as well as discussion leading to the appointment of particular person? Okay, that was Chris Nairn as first, Carol Seehoff as second, and all those in favor? Aye. Aye, motion carries 6-0. We will resume open at roughly 7:30 p.m. this evening. Thank you for joining us for the open session.
For coming out to the Amityville Union Free School District Board of Education meeting, May 17th. We are resuming open now at 7:40 p.m. Please note the emergency exit closest to where you are seating, no smoking on school grounds. Please silence your cell phones, and please join the Board of Education in the Pledge of Allegiance. At this point in time, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to move agenda items 3B1 to 3B17 to after 1C1.
Motion.
Winnie Canestro was first,
Second.
Carol Seehoff was second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Good evening to our Board of Education, our colleagues and community, and to all of our honorees on this evening. Hello. Tonight, one of our presentations is to continue to foster a positive culture and climate throughout the district and to acknowledge those staff and student scholars who have just gone beyond the call of duty to make Amityville a special place to work and learn and to build wonderful working relationships. At this time, Ms. Mary Stevens, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, will call out the names. When your name is called, we ask that you would come down to the front, receive your certificate of honor, and remain for a group photo.
Thank you. I too am excited to celebrate the accomplishments of our students and our staff. And we are happy that some of the honorees who weren't able to attend previous meetings are here this evening to receive certificates. We're going to start with our students. Our first is Parker Colehep. Next, we are pleased to welcome Chase Myers. Caleb Mignani. George Lopez. Akinkumi Akandi. Merle Francois. Tiffany Asbell. Lisette Acosta. And our amazing staff members, beginning with Kim Hardwood. Harry Nasso. Margaret Brooks. Melissa McCormick. Denise Doria. And Amy Fulford.
We invite the board to come and join our honorees for a group photo, and let's celebrate them as they gather and smile.
Board of Education. I'm gonna go down to items 3B1 to 3B17 at this point in time. Can I have a motion to approve agenda items 3B1 to 3B17?
Motion.
Second.
Chris Naren is first. Wendy Canestro is second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Congratulations. I'm just gonna pass this over to Dr. Talbot.
Tonight, we are delighted to celebrate a significant milestone in the careers of several remarkable members of our school community. Achieving tenure is a momentous occasion, and we are proud to honor our dedicated educators and leaders. First and foremost, we pay tribute to our teachers for their exceptional educational leadership in and out of the classroom. We extend our deepest gratitude and congratulations to you on behalf of the Board of Education. You are the architects of our young minds. You foster a love of learning that transcends time. At this time, we invite your ATA president, Mr. Nakia Wolf, to come up and give acknowledgement of his ATA members.
Good evening, everyone. Nakia Wolf, ATA President. First and foremost, a thank you to the school board, to central administration for the approval of tenure for our members. Tonight, we're here to celebrate a significant and well-earned milestone, which is the awarding of tenure. This moment reflects not only years of service, but years of excellence, dedication, and meaningful impact on students, colleagues, and the life of our schools. Tenure is a recognition of your professionalism, your passion for teaching, and your commitment to growth, not just your own, but that of everyone around you. It marks your place as a trusted educator, a leader, and a contributor to a culture of learning and care. Reaching this point is no small feat, and it doesn't happen alone. We want to take a moment to thank the building principals, whose mentorship, encouragement, and support have guided you along the way. Their leadership has helped shape your path and foster your continued development. You guys also make the initial recommendations, so thank you. We also extend our heartfelt thanks to your families, the people who have supported you through long days, late nights, and the unique demands of this profession. Your encouragement made this milestone possible, so thank you. Tenure is not simply a title, it is a vote of confidence. It acknowledges your impact in the classroom and beyond, and it positions you to take on new roles as a mentor, a collaborator, and a continued force for positive change. So on behalf of your union and colleagues, students, your principals, your families, and the entire school community, congratulations. This is a proud moment, and it is richly deserved. We are grateful for everything you've done, and we look forward to all that lies ahead. Before I close, I also want to give another special announcement to our teaching assistants. If teachers are the ones that are on the front lines, then our backbones are those who assist us daily in helping to grow and nurture our students. You are there with us as we teach. You take small groups. You form bonds with these students, with our students, just as strong as those that us teachers form. And together, we make an amazing team as we look forward, and we look forward to taking us to further heights as we educate our kids, our students, And we try to do our best to be examples for the community. So thank you for all that you do as well, and congratulations to you tonight.
Once again, congratulations to each of you. We appreciate your passion, your steadfastness, and how you show up for the kids every day. Thanks for being on Team Kid. And once again, congratulations. Tonight's refreshments have been provided by the ATA and LAP. Thank you very much for recognizing our teaching assistants as well as our teachers. At this time, we are going to recess so that we can properly recognize, celebrate, and have a moment of fellowship with our honorees on this evening. Prior to the recess, we acknowledge Ms. Carrie Alberta. Would you stand? Ms. Jacinia Bermudez. Marilee Brodat. Allison Demaro. Lindsay Gordon. Maria Ramirez. Jennifer Rivera. Stephanie Sage. Tamia Christopher. Tia Christopher. Kathleen Crowley. Melissa Goodwin. Jacqueline Hyde. Shayla Lewis. Tarazia Millar. Patricia Montefort. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Kenneth Williams.
At this point in time, the Board of Education is going to recess, so we can have at least a 10 to 15-minute reception with the tenured individuals. And at the end, we'll do pictures as well.
Would all the tenure honorees come forward at this time? So we can have a group photo here up front.
At 8:15. At this point in time, I'm going to give it back to Dr. Talbert.
Thank you. Good evening once again. As we are aware, back in 2023, the district retained the services of H2M architects and engineers to prepare plans and specifications for interior renovations at the Edmund W. Miles Middle School. Here tonight to provide the board with an update is the Vice President and Studio Director of H2M, Mr. Jason S. Smith. Thank you.
Good evening, Board of Education, District Administration, Dr. Talbot, thank you very much. Again, my name is Jason Smith, VP at H2M Architects and Engineers. I've been with H2M for approximately 23 years and have approximately 30 years of overall experience as an architect. Tonight, just want to give you an update on where we stand with the Edmund Miles interior renovation project. As Dr. Talbot stated back in '23, the voters approved for us to move forward. We then submitted plans up to the State Education Department, and we achieved a building permit in October of '24. And as you all, I believe, realize that the project is aidable by the state. I believe the aid ratio for the district is somewhere in between 55 and 60%. But that's something that is amortized over 15 to 17 years on a renovation project. The scope of work basically includes renovation of the existing classrooms on first, second, and third floors, and it's mostly on the southernmost region of the building itself. And if you recall, Miles, the original date of the building is approximately 1962. So it is over 60 years worth of wear and tear on that building. And if you look at, and we'll get into a couple quick photos to show you some of the interior finishes that we're going to renovate. So the project does include new flooring, new ceilings, new casework, new lighting, and replacement of the unit ventilators, which is a big component of the project. If you do recall, back in '22, I want to say it was around Christmas or so, there was a hot water leak that caused significant damage to the west side of the building. And so the district was able to secure an insurance claim and cover a significant portion of that work. But the east side was kind of still left alone because they only allowed that western section of the building to get completed. So although there are components of the project that were done, there's a lot of work still that Miles requires. So in addition to the scope of work for the classrooms, there's also boys and girls gang toilets with new ADA accessible fixtures, plumbing modifications, new flooring, new walls, new ceiling finishes, and new bathroom accessories and lighting, of course. Casework, we've recommended for the casework to also be included with the project. It is a significant component and is continuous with the work that's happening in the rooms. So here's some existing photos of the spaces themselves. As you can see, the majority of these rooms are from 1962. So you can imagine the wear and tear they've received over the years. Again, first, second, third floors. Here's some classroom photos. Here's some photos of the existing casework. As you can see, the lamination. There's significant damage to those, to the casework and the finishes themselves outside of just standard wear and tear. Another component of the project is an asbestos abatement. There are VAT flooring tiles that are included in the scope of work, which is pretty substantial because once you attack or abate those floor tiles, you'll see that it takes time to just be able to manage that work and get the rooms back together over the summer. So here's a portion of the floor plan. This is more of the northern section of the building. As you can see, the round cafeteria there. So that the reddish section are items that are not recommended for award in this project. Although we did outline them in the scope, when we walked the building, we saw a lot of different items that needed to be renovated, but we couldn't fit them all in the budget. So there are certain alternates that are not included and not recommended to be included. So here is the first floor of that southern section. And as you can see, though, so the green highlight is work with the alternates. And it's a little tough to see, but there is a gray item, which is the base bid. And that is mostly all of the classrooms on this side of the building. So here's the second floor. The second floor, don't forget that reddish highlight is actually not included in the scope of work, but the other ones are. And here is the third floor as well. So as you are aware, we did take bids in from contractors. We had bids, they were due in April. So we have actually submitted our recommendation to the board. We're very hopeful that the board will move forward with this work. So as you can see, contract G, the base bid is 1.773. And then there's an alternate that we also recommend to be awarded in the amount of $726,000 for a total of $2.4 million. The HVAC work, the unit ventilators in the spaces definitely need upgrading. And that's another component, which is the contract H, that's $740,000. The electrical work, $541,000, and then plumbing work for $336,000. So it's a grand total of $4,061,420. It is, our recommendations have been submitted. We're hopeful that the board will authorize this work. One of the key components you'll see schedule-wise, we are attempting to accomplish a major portion of this work over the summer, obviously when school's not in session. So the abatement itself is always recommended to do when school's not in session and no students, no faculty are in the building. So our goal is to accomplish that in most of the classrooms so that you don't have to come back and take care of that at a later date. So again, there's also the restrooms that are included. So if you look at those, we're also going to try to accomplish them over the summer. But because it's so much work, we do believe that it's going to span into the following summer. So that will happen. And in the summer of 26, any of the remaining work that we will not be able to accomplish over the first summer will be accomplished over the second summer. And that pretty much wraps up the just overall overview of the project, and just wondering if there's any questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation. So I think I just saw Leslie Kretz. Did you have? So go down.
Couple of quick questions.
Just bring your mic a little bit closer.
Sorry. The restrooms, is the layout going to stay the same amount of toilets as it is now? And
Yes, for the most part, the layouts remain the same. We do have to change slightly for some of them that were not ADA accessible, but we did our best to maintain the plumbing fixture counts.
okay, how many classrooms in total? I know I should go on there and count, but I thought maybe you might know.
I actually, I'm
Around.
not sure if I know totally, but I believe it was close to, hang on a second, I had some notes. It's close to 50 classrooms or so, give or take.
Okay. One
Don't
more-
quote me on the number.
No,
I-
no,
I can get you the exact number, but,
Good,
okay.
good.
Thank
I
you.
should've counted. What is the difference on the legend? It has the, in the gray area, base bid scope of work and the green base bid with alternate G8 work taken. What's the difference?
So the G8 is the casework that we're recommending that the district include in the project. So you'll see those, that's kind of the difference. And, you know, if you look in for the scope of work that's happening in the classrooms, we are removing the unit ventilator. We're also abating the floor tile. That floor tile is, you know, it's right adjacent, if not many times goes underneath the casework. So to even to assess the actual abatement, we'll need to remove that casework. So, and the condition that it's in, it could potentially even fall apart. So we recommend moving forward with that component as well.
Thank you.
Sure,
Thank you very much.
no problem.
Okay, Chris?
Hi, I don't know if this question will be for you or for Ms. Pawazzi, but
Sure.
I'm looking at the bid results from the different contractors, and I'm wondering why there's, in almost every category, there's significant differences in some of the companies. Like, just looking at the first row, bonds and insurances, you have one company is as low as $30,000, but then another one is as high as $290,000.
Yeah, sure.
Is that common,
It
or
is
is that just
actually,
different budget
it's
lines?
actually very common. And in today's world, the contractors, they don't always give specific pricing for those items. We put that in the bid to try and get an idea of their values. But what happens in the long run is they're not held to that actual individual pricing. They're held to the bottom line. And so in the end, if we are to move forward, we actually review what's called a schedule of values. And those schedule of values are kind of hardcore, and those are the ones that we make sure that they are at their number.
Okay, so that kind of goes to my next question.
Sure.
So they're not, if they misappropriate one category, it's not, it's as long as they have the full number
That is correct.
and they're held to that number, so if they
They're-
miscalculate, that's
That's
it?
it. They are held to that
Anything
number.
that they would ultimately charge us would be really on them and it's their responsibility.
That's absolutely correct. And
Okay.
just as a guide too, we also sat down with the contractors. So after they put their bids in, we sat down with each low bidder and the next potential bidder and made sure that they're aware of the scope. They included everything that's outlined in the drawings and specifications. So we sat down with them. They acknowledged and agreed that they were comfortable with the scope and the overall budgets that they have included in their bids.
Would that include any area, like they're opening up a wall or whatever the work is, and they realize that there's damage that needs to be repaired? Would that also be covered, or would that
So,
add to the cost?
so what we've done and is standard practice is we've included allowances in each contract for that. So I think we have somewhere in the range of approximately 5% or so that's outlined as an allowance, which is specifically for that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Wendy?
I just have one quick question. I know when this was first presented to the community, it was, one of the bathroom's gonna be redone. Are they being redone altogether, or you're just doing just the, I see like the toilets and the urinals and is everything
It-
being redone? Is
it-
it being gutted and redone?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
that was my
that's
only
correct.
question. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Sure.
Megan?
Can I
Hi.
clarify?
Sure.
The first floor bathrooms are not going to be done, right?
No,
These
no,
are-
no, the first floor are included. There was, if you look at the multi-use toilets that are adjacent to the cafeteria,
Correct.
those were an alternate, and those are not getting done.
That's what I
But
wanted
the
to
other
clarify.
side actually is, yeah. So it was actually included in the floor plans, if you want to take another look at that.
Is it my turn?
You go ahead.
Hi, Jason.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. I think my questions last week led to you being here.
Sure, no problem.
So when I first saw your letter of recommendation and the spread of the bids,
Yes.
it didn't tell us what our cost estimate was, and I don't, so it's hard. I'm actually, in the industry,
Okay.
so I'm familiar with this, and I was concerned that the low bid on the general contractor was so much lower than the high bid, the range, and I didn't know what our cost estimate was.
Yes.
So you didn't I was asking to understand what the percentage off was from our cost estimate.
Okay. Okay. So as an overall, I believe in, Ms. Bawatsi can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that the entirety of the project is $4.1 million.
Yes.
Okay. So that's the overall budget for the project, and we're recommending under, right?
Well, that's the budget,
Yeah,
right? You're
correct.
saying, is that the budget that we have available?
Yes.
Okay,
Correct.
but I was asking what your construction cost estimate was. That's why I wanted it in the
It
letter.
actually led up to the budget. So
Okay,
our
so your
estimate,
base, okay.
our estimate was based on $4.1 million.
And that was the base bid
Yes.
with only 5% contingency.
So at the time, it was a little bit more because I want to say that was 23, so we did include some escalation and things like that.
Right,
in
right,
the
right.
budget.
Sure. Okay, so then I said, I wanted to understand that, so I'm glad, thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
So, and then Ms. Bawatsi, we have $4.1 million set aside for this project.
Yes.
So then I said, I don't know if I agree with, the ad alternate. And then on
because things come up,
Sure,
right? And even
sure.
if you have the 5% allowance, things still come up. And so I went back to the proposition, and it spoke about heating and ventilation, plumbing, electrical, and bathroom renovation. So we didn't talk about the casework in the voter proposition. So like, on top of my concern with the value of what we're suggesting be awarded, we were putting in an ad alternate that puts us right up at the top of the money that we have available. So I guess I'm just conveying my concerns with the recommendation.
Sure, sure. So I think you could probably do a little research on H2M. We do our best to maintain overall budgets, especially in construction. We've got a fantastic rate of keeping change orders down to a minimum. We feel as though we have outlined enough allowance within the project to be able to accommodate the scope of work and any items that we see if, we take down a wall and we have some issues there. So we think we have it covered.
So in other words, not all the allowances will be used.
That is our goal.
Okay.
And that's what we try to do. We try our best to make sure that you have credit change orders at the end. It doesn't always happen, right? But that's our goal, and that's how we proceed.
I understand that. And I guess, okay, but as a trustee, I see this and I'm right up against the available money. So can you speak to a little bit about the credit that was associated with, I guess, G8?
Sure. So as we sat down with the contractor, one of our questions is always typically, hey, can you do better? What can you do? Because at that point, you can negotiate with the lowest responsible bidder, and you can ask them the question of, can you do better than what you bid? And he did indicate that he could offer this credit. And so he gave it to us in writing and said, we're okay to offer you guys this credit on the award of this project.
Okay, and in the contract, it says we have to award the alternate right now, right? Like we don't have the ability to award it like later.
You do, but the problem is the scope of work that we're up against would require it to happen very early on in the project. So in essence, one of the first items we're going to be doing is the asbestos abatement. So to actually be able to accommodate that, we're going to need to remove the casework. And once the casework is out, it's really difficult to put back, right? And then if we don't award that alternate, we don't have new casework scheduled to be manufactured and installed into the spaces. So our goal is to have the spaces ready for the students to occupy, obviously in September, right? School doesn't stop, right? So we want to make sure that we're able to take out the flooring, take out the casework, order the new casework, have new casework come in. So that's the goal, and that's why we recommend to have it sooner than later.
Okay, and then we don't have a construction manager. So what is your role in the design services during construction?
Sure. So if you look at our contract, it's basically we come out on site as needed, right? We have biweekly meetings. So we'll have biweekly meetings scheduled with the contractors, and then on an as needed basis. So if we need to come out and look at something as the contractors come out, maybe they have a question, or maybe there's an item that says, okay, Mr. Architect, you scheduled this for here, look what I found. So we'll come out on site and make sure that we are out there and answering questions and doing whatever needs to be done.
Bi-weekly, we have bi-weekly, and where do the H2M fee is in the regular operating budget?
No, it's part
Just
of
kind of speak, Ms. thing.
It's part of that was the essence of my question. So it's going to come from part of the allowance, savings from the allowance that is anticipated here.
I'm sorry, a savings from an allowance.
The allowance, it's
But
going
the
to come.
allowance is there for change orders.
Yes.
So we're going with a low bid.
That's why my question was, Does it mean all the allowance will not be used? That's their goal.
Okay. So I'm sorry. So we're saying that we're paying our architect from our allowance in our construction contract?
In the estimate, because we are very, very close to the, this is 4.61,
Right.
and the overall budget is 4.1.
And the architect's fee is? Do you know off the top of your
5.6%.
We're 6%,
6%?
6% of the overall cost.
No, that's not included, right? That's separate.
It's separate.
Correct.
And I'm just gonna say it again. You're assuming that we're gonna not use our allowance to be able to pay the $244,000? Okay, so that's problematic from, my perspective. I don't know if any other trustees want to jump in.
Well, I think, Ms. Bawatsi, one of the items is, our design fees have actually been paid, right? So our contract is 70%. So 70% is basically design. And then bidding is 5%, and then construction administration is, I think, either 25 or something like that. So it's only, the construction administration is 30% of our overall costs.
And that's what's left to be paid.
I'm assuming Ms. Bawatsi could probably answer that.
Yes, but I think the question here is to trustee Messman's point is because this is a capital project, we are supposed to stay within the 4.1. That's what she's trying to say. Thank you. It's supposed to stay within the 4.1. So what we are saying, it's in essence, we are very close, very, very, very close
Okay.
to the budget.
Okay.
So what is the possibility that we could go over that budget?
It is possible if there are a lot of change orders.
Right, but are we like, since we're so close, are we very, very possible, or is it, if everything goes
Oh, yeah,
right with a little bit of error, then we could be fine? Like,
Possible.
trying to figure out how big
But
of a
it
risk
doesn't
is it?
prevent the board at one point to appropriate more money because this project is going to be over 2 years.
Right.
So that it doesn't prevent the board from appropriating more money for this project.
But why are
Would
we,
that be a
but
voter?
we're trying to stay within the budget, aren't we?
You can use a combination of bond money or budget, and this is budgeted money. So you can appropriate more if it's approved by voters in a subsequent year's budget.
So are you saying that what we already have approved is the 4.1, but we might need to approve more money?
If we are very close to the budget, yes.
But we should really work not to do that. If the voters approve right, if the voters approve this, we should be staying within what the voters designated for this. So I guess the concern is, do we need to scale back a little bit so that we have a cushion here that includes the remainder of your fee and has contingency for any possible change orders? If we're doing it right up against the budgeted amount, it doesn't give a lot of cushion. And given our financial state right now, I'm not sure that going out to voters asking more money for a capital project when we cut back on services or other things for kids, that's going to fly with our voters. So I would think that, I don't know, do we take another look and scale back in some way?
Maybe, I think the ad alternate is the problem, right? But so you have the 5% contingency, that's
Yes.
5% on
Yes,
$4 million?
approximately, yes.
So it's $200,000 contingency.
I want to say yes.
Okay, so that's not that much money in today's industry, right? In today's world. And I appreciate that you don't want change orders, but when you look at a base bid that ranges from $1.7 million to $6 million, our lowest bid contractor left a lot of money on the table. And that's why I wanted to know what our construction cost estimate was for even the general contract.
Sure.
I do have a question. So In regards to the work that's going to be done in terms of the renovations in the classrooms, I'm just saying hypothetically, if anything was to be pulled back, then, and delayed in doing the work, would there be any estimate of what would be that potential saving? Let's say hypothetically, we did the first floor and the second floor, just hypothetically, but we didn't do the third floor. What would be the potential savings with not starting on the third floor with what has to be, I'm just asking.
Sure, sure. So we actually did get pricing for each floor, but it's actually not, that's not how the bid is organized.
Okay.
So the bid is the base bid or the alternates. So we may have to revisit and look at potentially rebidding the project if that's the case.
Okay.
If we're not able to move forward.
And then with the alternate for the casework, if I'm hearing it correctly, the concern would be that if the board did not approve that amount at this point in time, that when you go to do the work in terms of removing the floors,
Yes.
that it would delay putting that casework down because you would have to order it, wait for it to come in. We would have to approve it first, number one.
Yes.
Then it has to be ordered,
Yes.
then it has to be put in. So the concern would be that hypothetically, that may not be completed by the time classes start
That-
again.
That
in
is
the fall.
correct. Yes.
Thank you.
But that might be the case, but the base bid, the contractor can do it without that. If they don't have to replace the casework. They bid the job as a base bid without replacing the casework.
Yes.
Yeah, so-
It can be done.
It
It's
can be
just
done.
the end result will not, I don't
I understand.
feel as though,
I agree.
right, it would be a state.
I'd love to have
Right.
a $5 million
Right.
project, but
Right.
we only have $4.1 million.
Correct.
Okay.
So if you don't have the casework, then what could be the complications down the line from the work that was done?
Complications down the line would be if the asbestos flooring does go underneath that casework, that could still be another potential abatement for when that casework needs to be removed and replaced. So you may have to come back for another abatement, which is kind of like double the work. Again, I think it would affect the overall project timing and schedule. I think that's the most significant component.
Okay, I think Carol's been waiting for.
The question I had was, you made mention of asbestos tiles in the classrooms. but
Yes.
Isn't there asbestos tiles elsewhere in the building?
Yes. But if you look, a big portion of it was actually completed when you did have that leak. So many of those floors were damaged and many of them were asbestos tiles.
Right.
So they were actually replaced in many instances, but not all of them, obviously.
Not all of them.
We're correct.
Okay.
So you kind of giving the building kind of equity on both sides, because if you go into the malls, you turn left, one room looks pretty good, the other side is 1962.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Caroline?
This is a question for Ms. Boazzi, just to help jog my memory. I recall from last spring, when we talked about this project, 4.6 mils, a number I remember. Am I not remembering that correctly, or is that part of the H2M fee? How do we go from 4.6 to 4.1?
I don't recall a 4.6, I recall 4.1.
Okay, yeah.
I just have another question. So I think that I'll speak for myself, maybe my colleagues would agree or not. I think it's important for us to stay within the budget, the voter approved referendum
Yes.
and not go over it.
Yes.
We're so close to, I appreciate you being here too, to field the questions and
Sure.
being in the hot seat.
No problem.
What are the options here? Because the way it seems is we're really going very close, and it seems that there's more possibility of us going over than under. What are the options?
Just my personal feeling, I think that we would be able to remain within the budget. But obviously that's based on me and my experience working in schools.
Can I jump in with a question? The suggestion earlier about not doing all the floors at once. so that, the casing abatement can happen in the individual classrooms to maximize efficiency? What are the ripple effects of doing that? You said the whole bid would have to change. What does that entail?
So basically, it entails speaking with the contractor and making sure that if we only award the base bid, they have to make sure that they stop that abatement at that said casework if that casework is not coming out.
I'm sorry, that wasn't my question. I meant
Oh.
change the scope so that we only do, 2 floors instead of 3, so that we can do the
Oh,
entirety
I'm
in the
sorry. Okay.
classroom to get all the abatement out of the way, classroom, floor by floor.
So technically, we're not supposed to negotiate scope. And that I think your attorney will probably tell you that's not within our realm. Our realm is basically cost, right? We can negotiate with the low bidder on cost, right? So that's why we were able to have that credit that he offered.
Mhm.
But scope-wise, it's very difficult in New York State bid laws to remove scope and then, because then the other bidders don't have that same opportunity to say, okay, you only offered that to that one bidder. So if you only offered to remove, let's say, 5 classrooms out, that's something that it should be, afforded to all of the bidders. So we
So
could
the whole
potentially,
process would have to start over
we
again.
could potentially have to rebid
So
the
what,
project.
but that's my question, like, what does that look like for us in terms of cost, timing,
Oh,
to do
so
the whole thing
co-
all over again?
So cost, our fee on bidding is approximately 5% or so, not that significant. So we would ask for a rebid fee, if that would be the case. And then the other potential is that costs will more than likely increase the closer in time for the scope of work to be done. See, right now, we're already tight, right? We're in May, so we're looking to have items moving forward, awarded the contractors need to secure their bonds, their insurances, and procure equipment, right, and materials. The closer and closer you get to that actual time frame, costs go up. So these numbers that we see here right now, I would have a feeling they would be increased if we would have to rebid the project.
From the time it started till now, how many months? When you started the initial bidding process, how long did that take?
So are you concerned about the rebid, how long that would take, or?
Yeah, just the timing of it.
It's about a month, close to a month. We could do it a little tighter than a month,
Mhm.
but then that's already, right, we're at the 14th, we'd be in June
No,
14th.
I
So,
get it's tight. I just want to know how long does it take?
yeah,
A month,
approximately a
okay,
month.
okay.
Approximately, you have to give time to advertise the project, publicly, and then time for contractors to come and look at the school
Mhm.
and then put their bids in.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other questions for him? Dr. Talbot, do you want?
I do. Mr. Smith, could you go back to the slide that says existing classroom conditions?
The photographs?
The photographs.
Sure. Is there a particular
And
one?
the second floor classroom 211. The work that you will do in that classroom, can you explain that?
Sure. So when we say casework, you see the wood face and the black epoxy top. That is what that alternate consists of. It consists of removing that old casework out of the space. So that's kind of what that alternate is. So but in this classroom, and our drawings designate what exactly happens in each classroom based on our, being out there on site. So some classrooms get new ceilings, some classrooms get new lighting, abatement of floor if it has not been abated already. So we remove the flooring, we remove the casework, remove the flooring, take the ceilings down, and then put it all back new, and paint the space and things like that.
So the work that's being done in room 211
Yes.
would be done, but this casework, when it's all done, would remain the same
Yes,
if the ad alternate
Is
did
not
not
selected.
cover
Yes.
the casework.
that's correct. So you have a new space with that same casework.
Any other questions?
Can you, yes, I have one more question. So if we needed more money, can you tell me again, we would have to go out for the public to vote on?
We can include it in future budgets,
It would have to be a capital,
transfer to capital project.
a transfer, but not,
It's called transfer to capital projects. And
so it is a voter approved.
as part of the budget.
It's not a proposition, a separate
It's not a,
proposition?
no, it's not a separate proposition.
It's not a
It will be
separate
part of the
proposition.
budget.
Are you asking about going out for a bond? Is that what you were?
No, I'm just asking, like, we're right up against, right? Like, so if we award the ad alternate, we're right up against the available money. So if something happens, which I appreciate, we don't want anything to happen, but if something happens and we went over $4.1 million, then we would have to find money elsewhere.
Well, like, what are we saying could happen? Because earlier I was asking about them sticking to their bid number. So what would be something that would cause them to go over that bid number?
I think the question would be if the allowance gets exhausted. For instance,
Okay.
if we run into something, right, and let's say we have approximately 200 or so $1,000 in allowance money that we have covered for that. If that gets exhausted and exceeded, that would be at the point where we would be above the contract, and then a change order would take place after that, depending upon if it is something else that's encountered.
Is there any way that, if we went forward in the process and the board is updated along the way, and we get to a point where it's noted that we are $800,000 close to, close to where we want to be at? Is there a possibility at that point in time that once the board is notified that we could just finish certain projects, or if something's already started, we have to finish through that? That's my question. Are we able to do things in stages to see how much it costs? And if it gets to a certain point, as the board is informed, then we can pause at that point in time before we go forward. That's my question.
So yes, it is possible. There are different ways to accommodate something like that. For instance, if we get down to close to the end and we say, okay, we can't accomplish these last 5 rooms, you could then potentially say, okay, Mr. Contractor, what's our credit for that? And maybe get a deduct change order and would bring the cost down. So that is a possibility. It's not obviously something you want to do, because then the overall scope doesn't get completed.
It may not get completed, but then it will leave us in a
Yes.
position that we're not going to go potentially over.
That's correct, yes.
Any
So
other questions?
I think we're in agreement that remaining within the budget is the main part of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as long as, I think what you were just talking about seems like a good solution to it.
That's why I was just asking that,
Sure.
just as long as a board that we are informed
Yes,
that we have enough time to stop something,
sure.
that all 3 floors are not going to be ripped up, and then you say, well, wait a second, we can't, being that we ripped everything up, we're going to have to complete
Sure,
it.
and-
So
and-
I think that's my biggest concern.
And sure, we will update you along the process, and I'll come to any meetings that you want me to, if it's monthly or whatever it is, to update you on our progress in construction. And we actually track the finances of the
Right.
projects. And so we can give you an update based on, where we are throughout the timeline of the project.
And at that point in time, the board could say, let's pause on a certain aspect of the
If
project.
needed, yes,
Okay.
but I think, that's something that we should probably look at early, obviously.
Right.
We don't want to wait to the end and be there. But we can maybe outline certain areas that we say, okay, maybe these areas are something that we have that in our back pocket per se.
Is it also possible, because this project is going to span 2 years, that it will give us the time to pause, to know exactly what will be
Yes.
coming the second year?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
good.
Any other questions? No. All right, so at this point in time, if there's no more questions, then I'm going to move on in the agenda.
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming
Thank you.
and answering
Thank you.
questions.
At this point in time, is there any community input regarding board agenda items only?
Hi, Chris Peel. Okay, it's a simple question. Okay, I heard that, scope isn't gonna be used. When you write a proposal, you have your scope basically outlines your entire work itinerary. Okay, and that's what the contractor is responsible for. When it goes off of that, then you're out of scope. Okay, and then you start to pay through the nose. Okay, and it might not necessarily be from any bad work. I mean, you're tearing up bathrooms in a lot of these cases. You start ripping it up. Okay, you got mold, drywall. You have the HVAC. You have mold up there. I mean, there's so many things that you have to deal with. I would just say, protect yourself, and you protect yourself. Just get the specifics out there and try to do what we can afford. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie Andrews, Amityville. Did I hear correct that, wait a minute, sorry. I get feedback. There's no construction manager on this case, on the Edmund Miles Middle School? Okay. And the architect's only gonna show up twice a week if you're lucky? Okay. I just Googled one of the bidders. Could you tell me what did the due diligence of the board or the process that you used to look for lawsuits against these bidders and whether these lawsuits were valid? Let's face it, anybody could sue anybody over anything. Just because I found a lawsuit, several, doesn't mean they were valid lawsuits or that the defendant, which was the bidder, lost. So what due diligence did the board do in the bidding process to make sure the lowest responsible bidder really was a responsible bidder? Crickets?
Yeah, I can honestly say I did not look at anything.
Nobody did. Oh, nobody did. Okay. I hope I don't need to remind this board, but I can tell Mr. Nearing was in high school. I don't believe there's enough young members here that they probably don't even remember the Park Avenue project renovation here. You do, because your sister was in the audience arguing, defending the person we wound up suing. The record speaks for itself. I don't need to go who was fired, who was sued. It took 2 years to get control back. We had a case, they had a construction manager on site every day, and it was still screwed up. And I would use a different phrase, but this is a public meeting. And that's what an architect, Michael Spector was a well-known architect. He did the court building out in Central Islip. So it wasn't just some little fly-by-night architect. Everybody got sued and everybody got fired, including, I believe, the law firm that was initially involved in suing everybody. It took 2 years to get control back from the board that was allowing the construction management firm to act like everything was okay. And the video done by the construction management firm speaks for itself. Water pouring in while electrical work was done, cabinetry was done. All the board has to do is go look. Go read the articles in the papers. See who was, speak to Jack Osborne, who was the architect that had the lawyer that had to be hired, who does construction law exclusively, who wound up representing the district and suing everybody. I think it's unwise to do. There is no one qualified in this district as an employee, one, because they have a job to do. And even if they were qualified, I don't believe you have anybody qualified to oversee a project that could go terribly wrong. And you have at least one person on that board that knows what could go wrong. And I think you really should reconsider. I'm not saying that H2M is didn't do their job, but I don't think it's a advisable not to have an on-site construction management company reputable, which was reputable when we hired people. That doesn't mean things can't go wrong. I don't think it's wise.
Thank you.
Hi, Margaret Chuff, Amityville. I missed the point where what was covered by insurance in this figure of the 4 million. What was wasn't there money coming from insurance claim?
Are you talking about the bonds that the contractors have to? Oh, no, I see what we're talking about is that in December of 22, there was a freeze.
Correct, that's what I'm
At the
talking
middle
about.
school, and then we did the west side of the building.
Right,
That piece was completely covered by insurance. We didn't have to pay anything for it.
that work
That's
was,
what we are.
and the work was done and completed, or,
Yes, yes, yes.
so there's no money left over, that's done, put
Yes.
to bed.
They were responsible for that piece and they did it.
Okay, and my other statement is basically, I mean, it's a great wish list and I would love these kids to have a beautiful school, hands down. But I don't think we're in a position to have a $4 million project in the state that we're in right now. And I would love to see a list, a priority list of what needs to be done first. If it's a question of, now, this bid is way close to the budget, I don't think we're in a position to even be close to anything at this point, and to have the mentality to go into the alternates to pay the fee of the architect is mind-boggling to me, hands down. That's just shell game stuff. So my question is, write a list. What's the priority? What is absolutely needed? I mean, I would love for the kids to have a beautiful environment, but really what needs to be done first? If it's do the flooring, get the flooring done for this year, and then move on to the next, do a bid based on years, what you want done this year, what you want done next year, and all the way down the line. To do 4 million at one clip, whether you have the budget or not, just because you have it, doesn't necessarily mean you need it. I mean, you can use it because there are so many things that could go wrong. Pick the projects that absolutely need fit done and do it and complete it. Because as President Johnson was saying, could we inch up and get to the point where of no return and say, okay, 60% of it's done and then 40% of it's left as crap. So you can't do that. So you either do all of something once and done, get all new ceilings, get it done. Then you move on to the flooring, get it done. Move on to the woodwork, the casework, whatever, the countertops, whatever, then get it done. But to do it all in one fell swoop with this kind of scary budget that we have and being too close to the belt is insane. Can a budget be done incrementally with a priority list of what needs to get done and when? And not just in a scope of work for X amount of months. I'm talking get it done this year, what comes next year, and then the budget, every time the budget will come into play for those particular projects. Is that possible?
Shirley, we are doing it in 2 phases. Jason, you can chime in.
2 phases over how long?
Over 2 years or 2 summers, because summer construction
Right.
is compressed. So
Right.
it's, and given the time that this bid will be awarded, the lead time for contractors to get all the materials that they need, it's shortened, especially when it comes to Univents. It takes a long time. to
Right. I
get
mean,
it in.
it's great to have a wish list,
Correct.
but to get the stuff done, one and done, pick a project, finish it completely and pay for it. Go to the next, get a list and go in priority, get it done and pay for it. That's how it should work. That's how you do it in a homeowner. You can't do your whole house at once. You do the kitchen. You get done, you move on to the den, move on to the basement. That's how, or you get a new roof. You don't do it all at once because I don't know many people that can actually do that.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Rose Tejada Torres, Amityville, 19 South Roundabout Drive. You got it, Rose Tejada Torres. I know I haven't been in middle school maybe 2 years or so, but my question is, looking at these pictures and stuff, I only see first floor boys bathroom. What happened with, there's no girls bathroom in the first floor? I mean, I haven't been there for 2 years, but I know it's not that great.
I believe my go ahead.
It's going to be both boys and girls.
Okay, because it doesn't show here, that's why I wasn't sure. All right, another thing is, there's no bathroom also on the second floor?
There is, I think,
There
I
are
think you-
bathrooms on the second floor, and
Because
they
it
are
only shows
included there.
third floor, mostly all boys' bathrooms.
but I think what he was just doing some pictures, but he was saying that all the bathrooms would be done on the first floor and the second floor. The only ones that were not going to be done were the ones that were near the cafeteria.
Okay. And then, this is gonna be during school hours or just only in the summer? Like
No, during the,
July,
probably during the summer
July and
hours.
August for
Yes.
2 months?
Yeah.
And one of the like, you're gonna start from first floor, second floor, third floor?
I don't
Start
know,
from
I
top
don't
to
know
bottom?
what the sequence would be.
Here's another question.
Is there a particular sequence that the project will be done in terms of starting from the
Right.
first floor, second floor, or how does that work? Just, if you can just answer.
So, yeah, we have what we call phasing. And like I said, the main component of the phasing will be the abatement. And the abatement does happen on all 3 floors. So work will be, we're going to proceed with work on all 3 floors this summer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that means when the kids are when the kids start in September, one of the bathrooms, boys and girls bathrooms will be accomplished.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure there's a bathroom for your students. My concern, thank you.
Thank you. At this point in time, I'm going to go on to the rest of the agenda because I don't see anyone else coming up. Can I have a motion to table agenda items 2A, 1, and 2, please?
Motion.
Second.
Wendy Canestro is first, Chris Nair is second. Just take the time for everyone to just look through the minutes one more time and provide any feedback. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. For agenda items 2B, 1 through 7, can I do them all together, or does anyone need me to do them separately?
Together.
All right, can I have a motion for agenda items 2B, 1 through 2B7?
Motion.
Second. Winnie Canestro's first, Leslie Kretz is second. Any questions or any comments regarding these readings?
Yeah, I just gotta find my spot on it. For 0115 on page 3.
Okay.
So it says, in order to implement this program, the board will designate at its annual organizational meeting a Dignity Act coordinator for each school in the district. Is that meaning that what is recommended by the superintendent, or does that mean we're selecting, the board itself is selecting the candidate?
I think we just approve it.
The superintendent would make a recommendation.
Okay, so that doesn't need to be specified in the policy?
No.
No, I think the superintendent makes recommendations and the board approves appointments.
Okay.
The only other comment I have is, I've said this before, the policy committee's been working very hard.
You talking about a policy or?
Yeah, the
just-
policies, I'm just saying that we've been working hard, and, our next meeting is, I think, May 27th. We'll be, I think, reviewing the cell phone policy with the governor and everything. So we're pretty pleased that we're making movement on this.
Thank you. Any other
Can I-
questions or comments about these policies?
I was just gonna ask about the cell phone policy. Is that,
So where we're at right now, I think we're waiting for NISBA to provide to provide a template, a sample, but I think there were other samples that Dr. Talbot had provided to us as well. So we're just waiting for both, and then we're gonna sit and look at. them
Because they
together.
updated it, right? NISBA was
Yes.
updating the,
Yes.
okay, thanks.
So we're
And
just waiting
then-
for that, and then we'll be able to look at the updates from NISBA as well as the ones that were provided to us.
okay, because we have to adopt it by August 1st.
Yes.
So is the policy committee meeting in May? Did that, was
Yeah,
it?
we said May 27th.
I'm
May
sorry, I'm
27th.
still thinking about these add alternates. Thank you.
Any, any other questions? Any other questions regarding the policies? All right, so this will be the second and final reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 7-0. Can I do agenda items 2C, 1, 2?
You do it separate.
All right, can I have a motion for agenda item 2C1, please? Carol
Second.
Seehoff is first.
Second.
Winnie Canestro is second. Any discussion on this particular item?
Why is it revised?
I think there was a person on here that was a employee of the district, if I remember correctly, and I think that person got removed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions regarding this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 2C2, please?
Second.
Carol Seehoff is first, Chris Nera is second. Any questions on this agenda item? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did everyone say aye?
No, I'm opposed.
Okay, so hold on, that's 6 yes. 1 no is Winnie Canestro. Motion carries 6-1. Can I have a motion for agenda item 2C3?
Move it.
Okay, Winnie Canestro first, Chris Naren is second. So for this particular agenda item, for the reorganization meeting date, we're looking at July 8th as the reorganization date. Reorganization meeting date, July 8th, which is a Tuesday.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 2D1, please?
Motion. No, second.
All right, Chris Nairns first, Winnie Canestro second. Any questions or comments regarding 2D1?
I appreciated the internal auditor coming, to give a presentation and overview and ask questions. And I believe the board will be, establishing something on the calendar, for next year to have them come to be consistent. Thank you.
You're welcome. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion to table agenda item 3A1?
Second.
Chris Nairns first. I'll do Megan second. Unfortunately, we had to, this had to be tabled. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. So is there any possibility that I can do 3B18 to 3B162 altogether, or does anyone need anything done separately?
I would like 88 and to 160 separate.
You said again, 88 to what?
Yeah, 88 to 160 separate. Thanks.
All right, so I can do agenda items 3B18 to 3B87 altogether.
Yes.
Can I have a motion for agenda items 3B18 to 3B87?
Motion.
Chris Nairn is first, Carol Seehoff is second. Any questions regarding any of these agenda items? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. So from 3B88, you said to 10.
To 160.
All right, can I have a motion for agenda items 3B88 to 3B160?
Motion.
Chris Nairn is first, Carol Seehoff is second. Any discussion on these agenda items?
Yeah, I had mentioned this at the work session. These are usually annual appointments. I understand the board wants to do it early, but I think that that's usurping the power of the next Board of Education that is sworn in on July 1st. And these appointments fall under their tenure on the board.
Any other comments regarding this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3B 161 and 162, please?
Move it.
Second.
Minnie Knashels first, Chris Neeren is second. Any questions regarding these agenda items? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3B 63, please?
Motion.
160.
What, sorry, 3B 163, thank you.
Motion.
Chris Neeren is first. Leslie Kretz is second. So this is for the interim assistant superintendent of finance and operation, and I misplaced my paper. No. Yeah. No. Do you want me to, so let me just finish this one here and then I'll just go. I'm sorry, Dr. Talbot, I misplaced my paper. I just want to say the person's name. So this is a resolution for the interim assistant superintendent of finance of operations, which would be Richard Snyder, with the start date of June 17th, 2025, and would go to June 30th, 2026. All those in favor? Yeah, it's a kind of a motion for agenda item 3B 163. I got Chris and I got Wendy. So I was just doing, I was just saying that it's an appointment of the interim assistant superintendent of finance operation, Richard Snyder, and the appointment would go from June 17th through June 17, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. Opposed.
Motion carries 4-3. In support is Carol Seehoff, Lisa Johnson, Chris Neeren, Leslie Kretz. Opposed is Caroline Fanning, Megan Messman, and Wendy Knesser. Can I have a motion for agenda items 3B 164 to 3B 169?
Move it.
Second.
Winnie Canestro, Chris Neeren. Any questions regarding these agenda items 164 to 169? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3B 170?
Motion.
Second.
Chris Neeren is first.
Do you want to explain what it is?
I'm gonna get there,
Okay.
yeah. Chris Neeren is first, Carol Seehoff is second, right? So, the interim, the financial consultant would be, Richard Snyder as well. This is what's occurring. Ms. Watsi's last day is May 30th. The interim assistant superintendent of finance operation needs to give a notice to where they're currently located. So the person would be working from June 1st through June 16th, right, as a consultant. So it allows ample time to give notice to their district, which would say what they have to do. Right? So that's why we have to do a consultant for 2 weeks from June 1st to June 16th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I didn't, Leslie, aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
Motion carries 4-3. And it's Carol Seehoff, Lisa Johnson, Chris Neeren, Leslie Kretz before, and then Caroline Fannin, Megan Messman, and Wendy Canestro. Have a motion for agenda item 3B 171.
Motion.
Second.
Chris Neeren, Wendy Canestro. Any questions regarding this item? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. Can I do 3C 1 through 6 all together?
1 through
No,
5?
thank you. Yeah,
Oh.
1 through 4.
Sorry.
1 through 4.
All right, so before I continue with this motion, I just want to, I'm sorry, acknowledge Richard Snyder, who's over here, who will be the, you can stand up 1 second, he will be our. Thank you. So can I do 3C 1 through 6 altogether, or do I need to do anything separately?
1 through 4, please.
All right, can I have a motion for agenda item 3C 1 through C4, please?
Move.
Motion.
Okay, Carol Seehoff, Chris Neeren, any questions on these agenda items? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. Can I do 5 and 6 together?
No.
No, it's okay. Can I have a
Just
motion?
5.
Have a motion for agenda item 3C5, please?
Move it.
Second.
Wendy Canestro, Chris Neeren, any questions on this agenda item?
I'd like to make an intervening motion to award the base bid only.
So the base bid is just, that's minus the 760.
Correct.
Second.
Just make my note. Hold on. All right, so the motion that's on the table right now is to accept it as is, but minus the alternate G8.
Correct.
So that's what's on the table right now. So the motion is to accept the entire bid except for the alternate G8 casework replacement of $726,000.
Yes, I asked a lot of questions before, so I think everybody at the table understands my thought process, but we don't have that much allowance. We don't know what we're gonna find. There's a lot of alternates in there. We probably could have selected a different alternate that I would have felt like we had enough cushion to pay for the architect and for the unknowns that happen in construction. So I'm just suggesting that the board consider awarding the base bid without the add alternate.
So all those in favor of awarding the base bid without the alternate GA casework of $760,000? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Hold on. Hold on. Leslie? And aye, so the motion fails at from 2 to 5. So it's, the 2 is Wendy Canestro and Megan
No,
Messman.
no. I'm sorry. I know I was late. I was voting with Megan and Wendy to
Okay.
award the base bid without. I'm sorry about that.
Just to
Oh,
ensure
hold-
that
hold
it
on, hold on,
stays in
hold-
budget.
Hold on 1 second. So I'm gonna do this again. So all those, all those, so the motion that's on the table is to award the bid minus the alternate G8, which is $726,000. That's what's on the table. So,
Wait, can I say something to that?
no, not yet, just
Discussion?
when we get to discussion
Okay.
important. So that's the motion that's on the table right now, which is the entire bid that's there, but minus the 726, which is for the casework replacement. That's what's on the table right now. So the bid would be awarded, but minus that particular amount. So that's what's on the table. So if everyone understands that now. So discussion on this.
The reason why I would support it is I think that, it's important that the Board of Education stay within the voter-approved referendum. And if that's what they approve, we shouldn't be going over it. And this is an easy way to get into this tangle of going over things. Like, why don't we just ensure we're not going over it?
So I think for me, I just kind of feel that if we're able to come back to the table and award the money if needed, then that's something that I would support it as well. So that's just my thought process.
What do you mean by that?
So if we take the 726 out right, at this point in time, but as we're going along and they come back to us and they say that we do need $400,000, right, in order to do the casework, then I would say let the Board of Education to consider that. It may delay the final product being done, but then they would come back to say, this is where we're at. Also, we'll be able to look at what we have spent so far and how close we are to the final amount. So that's it. So that's
So
just.
are we fully reassured that, as you asked for before, that we can, when we get the updates, if we're going to go over it, that then we can put a stop to it and finalize whatever work was done? Like, we'll be able to do that?
So that's what he did state. He said that
Right.
we could, as we're moving along, that if we're getting the financial updates and if we're getting too close to our comfort level of getting too close to the $4 million, we can say, stop there at that point in time. That was my understanding that he's not here anymore. That was
Well,
my-
I want to see what Megan.
Let me say something.
No, hold a second. That was
Okay.
I'm gonna give you 1 second. That was my understanding when he was standing there, when I asked that question. Could we stop? And he had said yes, but my other question was, similar to when someone came to the mic before, if we're doing things in phases, then it would allow that one floor, for example, to be completely done. But that was just my thought process. But if they're doing an abatement, does all the abatement have to be done at one time? So
It sounded like the abatement has to be
That
done
that
all
has to
at
be
one
done at one
time,
time.
and they would be, as if the tiles go underneath the casework, then they would be ripping the casework out at the
Right.
same time.
So I'm going to
So
make,
I'm just gonna say, it is not standard practice to award a contract and then deduct after.
I don't-
So if you were going to do a deduct, you would have broken it out on the bid form. And then it becomes a fight with the contractor and you don't get as much money back as it's actually worth, right? So if they're gonna start with submittals and meetings and X, Y, and Z, you're only gonna get a fraction of the money back if you decide to say, let's stop now, because now we're gonna go over our money. So it's not, I guess it's
Well,
maybe a possibility,
what
but
it's, the way I'm looking at it is, as they're going through, all right, we were projected, these rooms were gonna cost us X amount of dollars. But then as they're doing it, they realize that it's gonna cost a little bit more. So then they're gonna realize that in order for them to do the other classrooms, then it's gonna end up pushing it over. So that's the way I'm looking at it. Like, all right, as we're going, we're gonna have to stop with these number of rooms instead of doing the total number that we were thinking. Is that something that,
I mean, I guess
that
it
you
could
were
be a
speaking about?
possibility, but if it's case by case, right? Construction has unknowns. Remember, like with the emergency generator this summer, we got an emergency change order, right? So you don't know.
Right.
And each room will be different.
okay. Any other comments on this? So now everyone understands the motion that's on the table. Okay. So all those in favor of removing the 726, that's where.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
So that is, and I'm gonna say aye as well.
I'm
It-
going to say aye as well. And I also have a concern because I think that Stephanie Andrews brought up a very valid point about someone overseeing the job.
Yeah, right. So,
That's gotta be
I'm
part of the
so right
discussion.
now I have 6 ayes. Right. So it's 7-0. So we're gonna remove the amount of the 726. Right, so now we're on to agenda item 3C6. Agenda item 3C6. Have a motion for agenda item 3C6.
Motion. Second.
Carol, sorry, Megan is first. Carol Seover second. Any discussion on this item, please?
Yes. Yes.
Go.
Okay, so we talked about this a lot last week. And I pulled a motion and we got a bid evaluation letter back. And I'm just concerned that the feedback from the other potential service providers is such that the RFP was too limiting, that no one else could bid on the RFP. We have requirements in there that the required that they have, maintain a facility within 15 minutes of the school district. So, you know, at 8 o'clock in the morning, that's only like 5 miles away. So they said, we don't have a facility within 15 minutes of the school district. So on top of that, they had to maintain 100% of their vehicles at this facility with a certain contingency and backup vehicles, 10% of each size of vehicle at these facilities. At a facility within 15 minutes of the district. So I'm just concerned that that was too restrictive, that there's only one entity that could meet that requirement. On top of that, and excuse me, I'm looking at my phone because I have screenshots of this particular paragraphs of the RFP because it's a big document and I see Nate watching me. So there was also, and this is something I would like to understand a little bit better. There was also discussion about including the cost of 6 midday one-way in-district routes on a weekly basis, not to exceed 6 per week, that could include services such as sick runs, BOCES transportation, off-site learning, shuttle runs, short extracurricular trips. So this was like, I just didn't understand what this was because the cost for these 6 trips per week is now built in to our base bid. We're talking about bids, right? So that's not an alternate that's in there and no, at the cost of the contractor. So I can keep going because I'm concerned, right? I'm concerned that we were too restrictive in our requirements so that no other entities could provide the services. This service drives the budget of the district. We're absorbing a 28% increase. And I completely appreciate the concept that we want to be able to get to a school bus that broke down within 15 minutes. But, I think that we as a district need to get more creative and think about alternate ways that we can open this up so that we can get cost competitive bids. And we can ensure that we're, not overpaying for this service. On top of it, right now, as it stands, the resolution in front of us is for 5 years. And we have, I believe in the state budget, that there's a requirement to go to electric buses in 2 years. So we can't, regardless of whether or not we think that's real, because there is a lot of electrification happening in New York State. So it's certainly an initiative in New York State. Again, we have a resolution on the table for 5 years. So if anything, because we have to provide transportation this summer, we should be looking at a 1-year resolution and then rethinking how do we construct this RFP in a way that we can open it up to other entities.
Dr. Talbot just wants to have, Nate. Go ahead,
Okay,
Dr. Talbot.
sure.
Thank you. Our transportation coordinator is here tonight. Nate, if you would just come forward to have some commentary. Trustee Messman, we certainly understand your concerns. There was a very thoughtful process that went into the development of the RFP, and districts across the island experienced anywhere from a 25% to a 32% increase in transportation across the island. But Nate, if you can just kind of share some enlightening feedback that may help us to better understand.
If I remember correctly, that wording was in the document that was provided as a shell. It was later removed in an addendum
Which language?
Which language?
about the 0 to 6 trips.
Oh, okay,
So it's not.
And it was more intended for field trips and BOCES transportation.
not for sick kids.
Correct.
So that was removed out.
That is correct in the addendum 1.
Okay, thank you. So I didn't have the addendum. So thank you for clarifying. So you're saying that entire paragraph, 6 trips per week, not in there?
I believe the whole document was provided to the board.
Okay. Okay, but you took that entire paragraph out.
That is
Because
correct.
you're very knowledgeable of the ins and outs. I didn't, I do this in my spare time. So,
The
uh,
last district that I worked at, we had 10 trips that the provider went with every single day,
that you required to be built in
built into
just
the
in case
RFP.
something happened?
That is correct.
And so how many of these trips do we have?
It's
It-
not many. That's why it's at 0 to 6. And that's also why we took it out.
So we're not really doing that, is what you're saying?
That is correct.
Okay, so it's out. Okay, so thank you. No, go ahead.
I just have a question. If, in terms of bids, why within 15 minutes? Is it just to get the buses here quicker? What is the next closest bus?
The
Depot.
previous RFP gave a distance of 5 miles, and industry standard shows 5 miles or 15 minutes.
It's so that if the bus breaks down, right, that.
That is correct, yes.
Also, if there's an emergency in a building and you have to transport children.
Right, if we have a morning in December where all of a
Right.
sudden we get an inch of snow, do you want your buses to be 45 minutes away?
Exactly. Also, if there's a, bomb scare and you've got to get the kids out, another reason to be 15 minutes.
And just to be transparent, our current provider is 5 minutes away.
Right, thank you.
And just for another question I have is this, is that if we went out for another bid hypothetically, and there was a bus company that was selected that was, let's say, 45 minutes away, right? How does that affect the cost of the bid? Can we predict it, or we can't predict it?
Even though we ask for deadhead mileage not to be invoiced,
What do you mean by deadhead miles?
deadhead mileage is any mileage from the bus contractor to the first stop.
Okay, thank you.
Or from the school back to the bus contractor.
Okay, so that's not, so if someone was 45 minutes away, that would not be included in the cost?
Exactly. It's asked to not be included, but we know that they would add it in different ways.
Right.
Okay, thank you. All right.
My question is, I'm sorry.
I just want you.
Just,
You asked another question, Lisa. Where is the next bus company from? I know this one's in Copeg, where educational's in Copeg, right?
That is correct,
So
yeah.
where's the next closest one?
Suffolk would be the next closest one. They're all the way out in Bay Shore.
My question is, this is a 5-year contract. Is it a possibility to do a 2-year contract?
The
Would you-
ramifications are we would have to do another RFP in 2 years, and then we have the chance of getting another huge increase by either our current contractor or a new contractor.
But isn't it set up that we could have awarded it like in increments? Isn't the language of the RFP like that?
Yes,
Oh. And then
but
how,
you have to do the term at this meeting.
you have to do the entire 5 years now, but we could just authorize the first year, is what you're saying, that?
I don't know the legal parts
Oh.
of that.
I don't, okay. And what are your thoughts about the electrification in 2 years? Like, how does that?
From what I've heard, that's going to be pushed off, and that would not have been included in the RFP because it would have added costs. The costs that others have seen when they've included electrification are over 50%.
right, and I think the other part too with electric buses, and from different meetings that I have attended for New York State School Board Association, the biggest concern is that, well, hypothetically, if there has to be enough charging stations in all school districts. So if there's any type of event or any event that's occurring, there has to be enough spots
Yeah,
for the
and I
buses to
think- I
charge.
think
So
that-
that's the problem. So there's been a huge delay, and I know some companies, some school districts that have the buses upstate, what I've heard them say is that sometimes the buses don't last as long, especially if they're traveling up hills and they're going a long distance. So there's glitches that people have reported at different school board association meetings about the challenges that they have had with the electric school buses.
And
So
the
that's what I've
battery
heard.
capacity too is a problem.
Right, so the more weight
And
that
the
you
weight.
have, the harder it is to.
And Also, the
That's
charging stations, it was in the NISBA,
what I said, yeah.
in the newsletter, I think, I don't know, it was 800,000 or a million,
Yeah.
a million and a half. It's some exorbitant amount. So to go to electric sounds like we're saving money, but we're dumping a ton of money into
Right.
it. But I like electric.
Just speaking of like more,
I'm an environmental engineer, so.
The governor's budget was recently released, and it did include language that the electric bus mandate will have a kind of a pause where the state
Yes.
education department will give a 2-year reprieve from having to comply with it. So I think as you stated, there is a pause on that.
2 years from now or 2 years?
From the date that it was supposed to be.
2 years from
implemented.
27.
So I think that was in
2027?
2026 or 27.
It's 27.
So it's 2 years from that date.
so now it's moved back to 2029. Yeah, it keeps getting kicked down the, because of all the complications that districts are having with it. All right, so going back to this
Oh, wait,
motion
can I
that's on the
just ask
table.
Nate, one
Yeah, go
more
ahead.
thing?
Yeah.
Nate, did you want to share, just for the community's sake, that you reached out to the other bidders? Can you just explain?
So I did reach out to the First Student and Suffolk Transportation. They both indicated to me that they just don't have the equipment to start a new contract. They would have to open a new location because they don't have room at their existing locations. And what happens is EBT has all of our neighboring districts. So if they lose us, they're going to keep their drivers. And there's already a driver shortage. So new contractor doesn't want to come in and say, all right, we're going to start at Amityville. Now they don't have enough drivers and they can't fulfill the contract the way they need to, and they end up losing.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Any other questions or comments regarding this?
Yes. Nate, I believe there were other districts who only received one bid on their transportation RFPs.
All of our neighboring districts only received one bid.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Right. All those in favor of this item, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Everyone said aye?
Aye.
All right, motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3D1?
Motion.
Second.
Chris Nearing, Winnie Canestro. Any questions or comments regarding the treasurer's report? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. Can I do 3E1A to 3E1J altogether? All right. All those in favor of 3E1A to 3E1J?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. And I'm sorry, that was Carol Seehoff and Chris Nearing, first and second. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3F1, please?
Motion.
Chris Nearing, Carol Seehoff. Any questions regarding this agenda item?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
My motion carries 7-0. Any old or new business?
Yes, I have something. So, council, this is gonna draw you into this. So at the last meeting, we spoke about how the board had to appoint somebody to be chairman of the election. And, you know, it was said that it could be any resident. We nominated Megan unanimously, and she's going to be that. And education law 2025-2 was mentioned that this is what dictates the chairperson. So I had asked, well, what is their responsibility? So I looked into the statute, and I'll just read it briefly. It says, this is the part of the law that council had cited. In union-free and central school districts, the Board of Education shall appoint a qualified voter of the district as permanent chairman of each meeting or election to call such meeting or election to order. When hours have been set for voting in the notice of meeting or election, the chairman shall declare the polls open and closed at the appropriate time. No motions shall be in order during the hours specified in the notice for voting. Here's what I'm gonna ask. In districts divided into election districts, right? We have the high school, and we have Northeast. The chief election inspector in each district shall declare the polls open and closed at the appropriate time. So if the chief election inspectors of the high school and Northeast are declaring the polls open and closed at the appropriate time, what is the chairperson doing? Or our nominated board member?
Just speaking to the mic. sorry.
This is archaic language, but it does sound like that person would be calling the meeting to order. And then the election inspector would say, and the polls are now open.
That,
So while it's,
Just speak
we
a little
have-
more to the mic.
we haven't found a distinction between those two, that language. Call the meeting to order versus the polls are now open. So to
This
the
is this-
extent that language still exists in the statute, we're recommending that you have a chairperson, call the meeting to order and then leave. And then the election inspector can then say, and the polls are now open. There has been some delays where sometimes there's something wrong with the machine, and so there could be an issue of it not opening at the time that the election starts and people are allowed in. But I would just make that recommendation because the language continues to be in the statute. The statute needs to be updated.
yeah, I think it's from the 70s, right?
Oh, I think it's from the 1800s. Like, I
Um,
think it's.
But here's
very-
my question, council, about this, right? So if Megan's going to call the meeting to order, don't you need a quorum to call a meeting to order? There's no quorum, right?
No, it's the elect, so they call, so there's a board meeting.
Right?
And then the meeting where individuals meet to come vote. So you want a little history? So back when there was one schoolhouse, I think Amityville might have been one schoolhouse at a time. There was a meeting of people in the community. And the chairperson would then call the meeting to order. We're all here. And then they would vote by paper ballot. So it's not a board meeting where you need a quorum. It's a
Okay.
meeting of the people in the community to come and vote. So when you think about the language in the statute and think about the one schoolhouse, it makes a little more sense, the archaic language.
Right.
Because they were talking about the 30 people in the community that would come and go vote and calling the meeting to order, the polls are now open, that kind of thing. So it's really about the meeting of the people to come and vote.
So she would go to Northeast, because that's where the ballots are counted. She would go to Northeast, call the meeting to order, and then the chief inspector at the high school would also call the meeting to open, polls
Well, they
open?
would say the polls are now open.
Okay,
I don't know what to tell you. It's the language that continues to
okay.
be in the.
Thanks for the clarity.
Yeah, and I would just say that in the past, you know, when I've done it, I'll be very honest. If I would go to the high school first, right? And I would say 9 times out of 10, by the time I got to the high school, the polls were already open, which meant when I went up to Northeast, when I got there, the polls were already open. So polls are open, everything's fine. I got in my car, I went. So
And that's all she has to do that day? That's
yeah,
it?
That's it.
Okay.
You don't do anything else. Yep. So there's nothing, yeah, everything's fine, boom, and you go home. If you don't show up, you don't show up. If not,
That's all I have.
yeah.
Thank you.
Any other, this new business?
I do. I don't have the minutes in front of me, but 2 meetings back, we passed a resolution to go out for RFP for council again. And the date we set for, proposals to be submitted was June 11th. Today, we saw finally the posting in the Amityville Herald, for the RFP notice, and it had May 22nd. So, I don't understand why the time frame was shortened, since this is one of the very few instances where we're not in a rush. We're kind of ahead of schedule. Why would that time frame need to be shortened? And the resolution is for June 11th.
I believe the understanding was on or before June 11.
If I could find the minutes, which are somewhere in this packet, because that's what I referenced. The resolution was for June 11th.
So my question is this, is that it's been, if we get all the RFPs back, then we're still in a good position. So your concern is that if people don't have enough time to respond to it?
Sure, it goes along the lines of, are we casting the widest net possible? And why shorten the time frame if we're not on a time crunch, which we're not?
So I also remember correctly, in the resolution, there were like 7 to 8 law firms that that was requested that the notice goes out to. So that was,
Resolution never passed. We discussed it. I'm talking about two resolutions back simply to go out or to put an RFP out there.
I'm just thinking, you know.
It was April 22nd when Megan passed her motion to go out for bid. And it was accepted 6-1, and it had a date on it that all bids will be accepted or will be accepting bids until June 11th.
Yeah. But I
And
thought,
then-
go ahead, sorry.
So that's what we agreed to as a board, and the notice went out into the Herald and Massapequa Post. You said it went out May 7th, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I couldn't find it online, but that's fine. However, the date says everything is due May 22nd, so that shaves almost 2 weeks off of what we had initially proposed.
So my question is this, we also have requested that information go to certain law firms, and I believe
All of them,
All
were-
7, 8,
all
right.
of them got it.
right,
We sent it to them, return receipt requested. But we can always put an addendum in the
Right.
papers to extend it to June 11. I was trying to get it before I leave. That's why I tried to make sure that they all came in.
Okay, now I
Because
understand.
I am the one who is sending it out. So for somebody to come in and start to put it together would be very tough. So, that makes. because-
Now
Yeah.
I understand, but then that's a question for the board. Do we want to keep the original
so
wider time span?
I would say that, let's see by May 20th, which is election night, how many we get back. Because sometimes they don't actually hand it in into that actually date, the 22nd, because I've seen that happen before. They don't hand it into the actual deadline.
And I think we can call them tomorrow
Mhm.
and make sure that they got it because we all did return receipt requested. And they are supposed to return it on the 22nd, which is next Thursday. We'll make sure that they receive it.
And then they're going to be, and I think maybe if you can do
We-
that, just make sure that they have received it and that they're going to be submitting.
Yeah, 2 of them have already told us they would not.
Okay.
Can you share who that is? Who said they would not?
FNF,
Mm-hmm.
and one other firm.
Okay.
Just, yeah, let us know.
If you could let
Fraser
us know.
Feldman said they weren't going.
Oh, Philip, yeah. I have one other item. I think I brought this up one other time.
So,
The walk-on agenda items,
no,
are they being up?
hold on a second, Wendy, just before we go to your next thing, I just want to make sure that
Okay.
Caroline,
Oh, sorry, Caroline.
that Caroline's, because,
Well, that takes care of that. I had 2 other things, but
Caroline.
yeah, but I also want to make sure that your request was to, if we want to extend it. So hearing what you heard from Ms. Bawatsi, do we want to stay with the May 22nd? I just want to make sure that we finish that up before we go to the next thing. So I just,
If there's a phone call that, they can tell you at that point, like, do they have enough time? Can you just ask, like, is May 22nd adequate time?
I don't know whether legally I can ask them whether they have enough time.
Why not?
I have the
I
draft
don't know if I want to
agenda.
comment.
hold on a second. She can't, it's hard for her to comment because
But to the extent you want to extend it, it would have to be something for all candidates. So I think you
Right.
should make a decision as a board as to the date that you want to extend the submission.
Because it also went late in the paper. I think it was supposed to go May 1st and it didn't go to May 7th or something.
It didn't go late. When we call, you have to get it to the papers on a certain date for it to be reflected the following week.
Right.
And we had missed it when the decision was made. That was what caused it. So
Oh,
that brought it to May 7th.
Okay, so it wasn't published till May 7th.
It
So we
wasn't.
only really gave 2 weeks
We
for
did
them
a-
to.
You have to get it there by, I think, Wednesday afternoon to be published the following week. So it's all because of the deadline that the papers have.
Yeah.
and this is just print. This is not like on the Herald's website. You can't, that's a question. Is it?
That's a good question.
Because I was on their website and you can see dated legal notices, but I didn't see anything for us.
You didn't see anything for the 7th?
No.
I'll send you a copy.
It was a hard paper she was saying, but
Well, that's
not,
my question. Is it just in print or is it is it on their website as well?
I don't know whether it's in both, but I have the print one.
Okay, I looked online and I did not see it. So
I
only
think-
2 weeks for a print notice. I mean, I hear that you reached out to everyone, but it just seems like 2 weeks is not that.
We can
So
always
does-
put in an addendum.
So does the board want to put in an addendum to go an extra week? That's because if we put in the addendum to go to extra week, then she will not, she won't be able to deal with it.
Why
So-
don't we just stick to June 11th, what the resolution said?
Well,
Fine.
I have the minutes from that meeting, and just to clarify, it's proposals to be received by the business office no later than 10 a.m. on June 11th, 2025. So there's nothing
Yeah.
saying that it needed to go until June 11th. It just said it
No later.
can't go beyond that.
Well, that's the deadline.
Right,
Yeah,
but that's,
when you see the RFP, it says the submission deadline is May 22nd.
right, I'm not disagreeing what you're saying. I'm just
just
saying,
what-
this doesn't say that it should go until June 11th.
So what do we want to do? Do we just, do we want to do an addendum just to extend it for a week, or do we want to leave it? That's so we
I
can.
think just leave it to June 11th. I mean, leave
No,
it to.
we would have to do an addendum to extend it to June 11th.
Council, is that true? Like, if the resolution said June 11th and they
But
only
we-
went to May 22nd.
But it
The
was-
advertisement
was
or
May
what you sent
22nd.
out said May 22nd, so
right.
you'd have to do an addendum to let the individuals know or the bidders know that it would be going into
June
June
11th.
11th. And then also update your notice so that the appropriate date is listed there as well.
Yes.
Okay, make a motion to
So
do an addendum.
just before you do the motion, my only concern is this, is that if we get it back on June 11th, that means we have to meet like the next week to interview the different firms. So I'm just making sure that everyone understands that that week and week after, we have to make sure that we do the interviews if we push it back to June 11th. I'm okay in pushing it back to maybe like June 6th or something like that. That would give us more of a 2-week time frame. But I really don't want to, that's just my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with June 6th.
All right, so we're okay with an addendum that will push it back to June 6th, that everything has to be received by June 6th.
That's fine.
Maybe go around.
Is everyone okay?
Yes.
Yes, June 6th.
All right, so we'll just push it back to June 6th. So that's, Caroline had other stuff on her list, I believe, before I come down.
Does that have to be a formal vote, council, or a resolution or something, or how does that work?
I mean, at this juncture, I think the breadth of the
Just
resolution.
go,
Oh, sorry. I think the breadth of the resolution. just
covers it.
Allows you to just inform that you want the addendum to go to, what is it?
June 6th.
June 6th. Because the resolution gives you that authority.
until June
already.
11th.
Gives the administration that authority, because it says on or before June 11th, I
Mhm.
believe.
Yes,
So at this juncture, you're just directing that it goes to
June 6th.
June.
Okay.
Okay. Caroline, anything else? on
Okay,
your list?
the budget mailers, the report card, the newsletter, I forget exactly what they're called, that we're supposed to get in the mail. Have they gone out yet?
I haven't gotten mine.
When did they go out?
Of yesterday.
Meaning,
We
meaning
we got copies in the business office yesterday.
Monday, they were delivered to the 3 post offices.
On Monday, they were delivered to the 3 post offices.
So when do you have to receive them before the budget?
We're talking about the budget
Notice.
notice.
The 6-day notice and the budget brochure.
Thank you.
The 6-day notice?
The
Caroline?
postcard, they call it.
It's supposed
I'm
to be 6
listening.
days before Tuesday?
Yeah.
So then it should have arrived today?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
I don't know who got it or who didn't get it.
I didn't get it. Yeah, I don't know if anybody.
how much of that is, like, is that on the actual district? Because then once Like, is there a deadline that we have to get it to the post office? Compared
No, you
to
have to just
when the post
have it
office
to
has to do their function of getting it to the houses?
I think Copeg's already got it delivered, so I think you just have to factor it in.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's what I mean, like,
Yeah.
so it's more so a deadline that we need, that the district needs to get it to the post office.
Are you sure it was mailed on Monday? Because it seems that
That's when we got it in the business office. I don't know whether they physically walk it to the post office on Monday. But when we spoke last week, we said everything has to be done to expedite it.
So what happens if the community didn't get the budget mailer 6 days prior? Okay.
I'm looking up the date, but you really need to show that there was some kind of impact on the election or something like a late budget mailing or something of that nature. So
That would have impacted the outcome?
that may impact the outcome of the election. So when you say what happens, typically, you're doing a budget vote. And are you saying that because the budget failed, it's because the mailing went out late? I mean, there has to be some kind of connection, I
Right.
would imagine, between that event and the outcome of the budget vote.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Caroline,
Okay,
anything else?
sorry, last
That's
one.
fine. I'm just-
Um,
before I go down the line.
We were emailing back and forth about the Warrior logo removal because it's still not totally clear to me. Are we on pause because the board says we're on pause and you're waiting for us to go off pause? Or Dr. Talbert, you said that the buildings and grounds is still on track. I didn't really understand what you meant, so can you clarify? Because if we need to give directive, we need to give directive.
So New York State has not moved their deadline date of June 30th for all indigenous imagery to be removed. When there were some developments in surrounding districts, the board did say, let's pause. And Building and Grounds pulled back from removing items. They have convened to meet to see how they can get it done in 30 days, which is ambitious. So we do need a release, even if there's not a replacement, to begin some of the removal.
So that means that if we say tonight that please continue with removing the imagery, then they would continue to remove the imagery within the district, because that, you're saying that has stopped, correct?
It has ceased, but if you want to give us a particular date, I know we're sort of in waiting, and they are drafting up a strategy to see how we can get this done in 30 days. So if the board would like to say, if we've not heard anything definitive by May 29th, then we would begin to resume removal May 30th.
But removal and not replace, because I know there were some things in the budget to replace, so we're just talking about removal.
So and we were gonna leave, we were talking about leaving the A, but we can make a decision on that down the line. We were just gonna remove the imagery, correct? I'm sorry, Caroline, were you gonna say something?
No, that was it. We just need to decide, are we coming off pause so that we don't hold up Dr. Talbert and Buildings and Grounds?
I say by May 23rd. If we have not heard anything.
Why is that the magic number?
I don't know.
Is that a meeting do we have to vote?
We, we just need a date.
Well, so if we cut their timeline down, are we?
Will they get everything
real-
done?
Like, would they be able to just do the external things and then work on the internal pieces of it after school is closed while there's nobody in the buildings during the summer? I know it's technically has to be removed by June 30th, but it's out of the public eye at that point if it's just the internal aspect. I don't mean lying to the state, just mean
That could be a part of our strategic removal, but technically all imagery has to be removed by June 30th so that The board will not have penalty or consequences
Can we do,
for not taking those actions.
can we do June 2nd? I mean, I know that there's a lot of talk. I know that Massapequa now has this Harvard graduate who's pro bono doing a lawsuit. I don't know that a lot's gonna happen in 2 or 3 weeks, that we're gonna get any sort of answer, probably not.
I believe he also clarified that he is not including any other district in his lawsuit.
Right,
So
but I,
Massapequa was in a lawsuit with other
Yes.
districts, but this gentleman has specified that he is just representing Massapequa.
although I think if one wins, there's more likelihood that others would win, but I don't think that we're gonna have any, I don't think he's gonna have an answer in 2 weeks. I don't think we're gonna have an answer in 2 weeks. I don't think anything's gonna be coming down.
I'm just saying, I think we just need to go ahead and start to do it. That's just my opinion. I don't think anything's gonna change.
Just not replacing, just
Yeah,
removing.
and,
Yeah.
Right.
so,
But yeah,
right,
okay.
I know that, New York State, I'm not gonna belabor the point, New York State had said that if things were not removed, then they could possibly remove the entire board and da-da-da, but I don't think that's gonna happen, you know what I mean? So I'd rather, let's go ahead, they can start removing it again.
Such an oversight.
So am I clear?
Yes,
Imagery removal resumes tomorrow.
yes. Yes,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
Caroline, you good?
Yes, I'm good, thank
Okay.
you.
Anyone
all I
else,
have.
any old or new business?
Well, just to answer your question about mailing the school budget notice to all qualified voters, it must be mailed any date after the date of the budget hearing, but no later than 6 days prior to the annual meeting and election. The last date to mail the school budget notice would be today.
Okay, so
May
it was already
14th.
mailed.
So mail means they need to have received it already?
No, that the
Stamped.
district mails it, like.
Okay,
takes
so
the-
we have then
You're
given
within the
it,
time.
okay.
Thank you.
Since it's been mailed already.
I
Okay.
just have 2 things. I just want to make sure when we're doing walk-on agenda items, that those are subsequently being uploaded to the agenda on the portal. Is that happening?
So when the board has taken action on the agenda, the district clerk and we have met about the follow-up steps. Any walk-on agenda items have to be uploaded the following day into the agenda on board docs. And so I know that Lynn is in the process of updating.
Yeah, I
that
just want to make sure
information.
that it's on there so that if people have to reference it back. And then, the last thing is, we had a vote on the mascot and I know that it's a polarizing subject, but I would like to know, what is the timeline for us to revisit renaming? Are we holding off until, I don't know, until what? And what is the rest of the board's feeling on this to?
My feeling is that, to start to look at it again, maybe in June or July. So therefore, there's a process can be put in place and timeline when we want to get it done. So because whatever we decide to do, I believe it also has to be included in the budget. If there's any new things that need to be brought or anything like that, it could be included in the budget for the next year. So that, I would say, no later than July sometime, but I would say definitely want to start the process in June, have the conversation. We need to start the process.
But isn't it in the budget? Like, what do you mean for the budget? Isn't there like, you mean uniforms and things like that?
Right, you're correct, it's already in the.
Yeah, okay.
Any other comments or questions? Community input on non-agenda items?
Diane Eglinger. 2 questions. First one is, did I understand that you guys are gonna decide on legal counsel? This board's gonna decide on it within a few weeks after you get the RFPs?
So yes and no. So with the election, whoever wins, gets the highest number of votes, that will be the person on the board. So if it's Chris, then remains Chris. If it's a new person, then that new person will start that day. If, let's just say hypothetically it's Chris, right? So that means the second new person, whoever the second new person would be, that person does not start until July. So
Right.
technically it would be, if it's before June 30th, it would be the entire board that's here,
Right.
the entire board that's here. if Chris won. If Chris did not win with the highest number of votes, it'll be the entire board that's here minus Chris.
That's even if I win the second number of votes, I'm off the board for a month and a half or
Right.
so.
So
Okay,
it would be
but-
this current board, yes.
Yeah, so that, to me, that doesn't seem like that's the way it should go. I don't see, if you're deciding on legal counsel, which is a big part of the board, it shouldn't be decided on this board. It should wait until the new members are on, whoever they may be.
I think I said that with the appointments
Yes,
too. It
you
should be
did.
the reorg meeting. We shouldn't usurp the authority of the next board, but
I mean,
we
legal
just,
counsel is a very important thing, and it shouldn't be, to me, it doesn't seem proper to have the decision made by this board. It should be the new board.
that should be with all appointments for the annual appointments. I happen to agree with you.
Just bringing that up. I don't, you know. My second question is, little birdie told me that the district received $2 million from the state legislature, and we got increased 600,000 in state aid. So I was wondering how that affects our budget.
Dr. Talbot, I'll give that to you.
So we have received a verbal that the $2 million request in increased state aid has passed. We've not received it in writing as of yet. Ms. Bawazzi can elaborate on how that would impact the budget in terms of increase.
The $2 million or the?
The 2 million.
That's a decision that has to be made by the board, because if you recall, there were a lot of other areas that we have to cut in order to make the budget work.
Ms.
Including,
Bawazzi, I'm sorry, I think she means we would have to increase the budget by $2 million, right?
yes.
Right.
And when it comes to the regular state aid, if you recall, we already anticipated getting more state aid. So when you factor that in, the net difference that we are talking about, increase in state aid that we got is 96,000, because we already knew that we'll be getting a little bit more.
I hear you. I understand that, but I just think it should have been brought up for the many members that are here from the community, so they understand, if they see in the newspaper that we got an increase of $600,000 from the state, what happened to that money is what I'm saying. And the 2 million, in my eyes, and maybe I'm not understanding this, we're passing a budget for X amount of dollars. We now are supposedly getting 2 million, which should decrease whatever money we use for that 2 million should go back in our fund balance or wherever it should go, because the people are only voting on the budget that's on paper. So that 2 million is a gift to us if we're getting it, and that should bring our budget down by 2 million, to put that 2 million back in fund balance and then go back to the original number by putting the 2 million back in from the state.
Council,
not
can you,
un- am I not
can you weigh
understanding
in on that? Council, can you weigh in on that if that needs to be changed?
I mean, the budget at this juncture to be changed, it's already
printed and
it's already
on
been
the ballot.
printed.
Yeah.
Maybe for, I mean, I don't know what the steps would be to take into account this additional funds for the next budget cycle. But at this juncture, because the budget vote is in 7 days.
Yeah.
Right.
It's late to republish and do all of the legal steps that are required. We just talked about the budget notice. We just talked about the mailings that go into the community in order to change the budget at this juncture.
Right, we
You're
can't change,
missing-
we can't change the budget. That's what I'm saying. So we have this 2 million floating around up here. Right? It should be coming to the people, and 2 million go back to the fund balance from our budget.
So
You
with,
understand what I'm saying?
right.
I do. So I'll give your business official the opportunity to answer that.
Yes,
In terms of how that would work in terms of the steps it would take.
if you recall, we applied a large number of unassigned fund balance to the 25-26 budget. So you are right. that part of it will replace the amount, the money that we applied in fund balance to the 25-26 budget. In other words, we'll be saving it towards next year's budget.
Right, so it should go back, 2 million should go back into our fund balance. So at the beginning of the next school year, we should have an additional $2 million in our fund balance. Am I?
Not an additional, but it will replace
It will be replaced back
yes,
to go back to whatever our fund balance was it
yes,
3 million or something? And we
yes.
knocked it down to like 1.5 or 2 or 1?
yes.
So when we see the books starting next school year, that should go back to the 3.5 million and the 2 million go into the budget.
We don't do it automatic. Everything has to do through a resolution by the board and all that. So the business office cannot by itself do this. If we have to increase the budget or put it into fund balance, all that has to be planned out, and then it goes into fund balance.
I'll be watching.
Kathy called me.
Dr. Talbert, what, is this gonna have any impact on the staffing changes that were factored into the budget?
So this bullet aid that we're receiving, we probably won't see it for a couple of months, the actual monies. And then at that time, we would ask the board to increase the budget by that amount via resolution. At that time, then the board would have to decide how we would like to appropriate those funds. And so what Ms. Diane was just stating her recommendation for it to go back into fund balance, but it would warrant discussion as to
Correct.
where the appropriation would take place.
The, uh, Stephanie Andrews, Amityville. The board of the voter proposed budget for the ballot, there is no dollar figure on that ballot. So the dollar figure for the budget is what? What the board approved as an agenda item. The public doesn't see the dollar figure, correct? Because I saw one of the ballots. There's no dollar figure on there. It just tells the voters you're approving a budget. Am I incorrect?
You're correct. You're correct.
So hold on a second. So,
I saw the
So-
absentee ballot,
so on the,
and the absentee ballot has no dollar amount.
This came up because we weren't gonna meet the deadline. So John.
Correct.
And John had said, you don't have to put the budget figure.
I just want to confirm that.
Yeah,
With,
okay.
was it Lisa, right? You're Lisa Hutchinson?
I am
Yes, I
Lisa.
remember you. All right, you were a lot younger. I was a lot younger. Is that correct?
So some ballots do include the exact amount that it's going to be raised by, whereas other
Can you
ballots.
talk into the mic? Believe it or not, I
Sure.
can't even hear you from
No,
here.
that's fine. Some ballot language does include the exact amount it's going to be.
But this
raised
one
by,
doesn't, and it doesn't
but
have
this
to.
one
Is that
doesn't
what
have
you?
to, no.
So it has to be then what the board voted on, that's the dollar amount. Okay, so this is the second part of that question. Is the board allowed to spend $1 beyond what they voted on that day as the budget presented to the voters? Are they allowed to spend, regardless of where their money sources come? I don't care if they got $1 billion from Albany. Are they allowed to spend more than $1 beyond what they voted on?
Well, if not by, it would have to be by some kind of resolution with regard to taking money out of a reserve fund or something.
So
of
the
that
board is allowed to vote as a entity to spend beyond the voter-approved budget?
No, what I'm saying is, no. But what I'm saying is if there is further action by the board, let's say to expend from a reserve fund or something of that nature, technically that would be going beyond the budget because they're.
Right,
doing
so I'm
from
asking you,
another
that's either a
source.
yes or a no. Are they allowed by law to spend $1 beyond the voter-approved budget
The
that
vo-
they voted on as a unit to present as a budget vote?
If the answer is no, but I'm saying is there could be exceptions with regard to further board action to expend.
Well,
not going
well,
into a reserve-
assuming they took action, are they allowed, that would be, they would be allowed to vote to spend beyond the voter-approved budget?
What I'm
Or it has
saying-
to go back to the voters?
It would have to either, it depends on what the particular vote is. Let's say they're voting from a reserve to expend money from a reserve fund that the board can approve, then that would be technically beyond the budget. So
Right.
I'm saying that there are certain exceptions that may apply.
And where are they in the law that I could look them up?
I can get that to you. I don't have.
Okay, you get that to me with the RFP that I requested, that I got a response from the district clerk that I can't get that document to look at it until June 13th, when Ms. Messman had it right in front of her. When I put in a FOIA request, I put in to look at about 7 or 8 documents. It took 6 days to get the response. The law is 5 days to tell me what she was going to do. And in the letter, it says they'll have to look for it, and by June 13th, they'll have that answer. Ms. Messman has it today. How come I couldn't see it today? How come the public couldn't see it today? That is not the way FOIL is supposed to work. FOIL, and there's a reason why district clerks usually are not the records access officer. The business offices, because they know what's allowed to be seen. They have it at their fingertips. She'd have to go through every agenda item to see what I'm even talking about, or throw it back to them. So why do we have to go through these hoops? Just want to put it out there. Obviously, I'm not going to get a right answer. Could we just have a very brief answer why you tabled the helicopter?
Oh, yes.
Nobody explained why.
So what happened? Dr. Tubb, you want to explain that? Because you know the full details.
Sure. The United States Marine Corps
Yeah.
was looking forward to visiting the high school. And due to their deadline, they had to pull out.
Oh,
And
they pulled out. Oh,
Yes,
okay, all
yes.
right, so they pulled out.
All right, so
Okay, so then this is just a general statement. It's no commentary on the current superintendent. I'm just going to ask a general question. When a superintendent, when people in the public think superintendent buyout, there's no such thing. There's no such animal that's a gift of public funds. What happens is a superintendent and a board don't see eye to eye for whatever the reason. They bring them up on charges and then they settle, and that's the buyout. There's no such thing as a buyout. So let's get that on the table. So, and that is a foilable document. They may not say it, they may not let you think it as the public, but that's a foilable document. So agenda item 2C2, would like to know, is that a foilable document that is that involving any money to this person who is now staying a whole nother year? So that does involve money. Is that a foilable? I know you don't have the person's name, and I know you don't have what the circumstances were. I want to know if that's a foilable document, because I'm going to foil it.
Yes, most documents are foilable.
Right, that is a foilable
And-
document. So you make the district clerk aware right now, when I foil that document, I'm going to get all the document that this board just approved. Because this board could have said, we're going to put that on the agenda for the public to see, because it is a public document. Just like when you do negotiations, you could do a public presentation of your negotiations if you don't like how it's going. Everything in executive session is not mandatory. It's allowed. Remember that. Thank you.
thank you.
Just to clarify in terms of FOIL, most documents are foilable, but subject to redaction to remove information that may, sure. Most documents, most school district documents are foilable, that's what I call it. But they're subject to redaction to protect the privacy of individuals. So you'll likely get a document, but it could have some redactions on it to protect the privacy of individuals, students, things of that nature.
Margaret Chuff, Amityville. So the last time I came to the podium, we were talking about the budget notice that was at the printer, because the slide was wrong. That was during the presentation with the percentage, and it was very confusing and incorrect. And then we said, then we talked about when is the budget notice going out to the community? And you said, well, it's at the printer. And then I said, well, you're gonna make a phone call and you're gonna correct the numbers so that when it does go out to the community, it's going to be correct. Was that done?
We reviewed the newsletter and there was no correction needed.
Great. So how are you gonna correct the incorrection?
There was no correction needed in the newsletter.
Oh, you said, oh, I thought you just said there was no correction done.
Needed.
So
In
it
the
was-
language,
It was on the slide.
The numbers,
the language was correct in the newsletter. And the newsletter was mailed out, was at the post office on Monday.
and we went through the whole 6 days. Okay, thank you.
So
Thank you.
just to build on that, the slide was the slide updated?
Yeah,
And then that's on the website? Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Hi, Daphne, Amityville. Do we know what services are gonna be impacted, will impact our children with this budget? Like, what is the district, like, the board are pulling away from? What services are being pulling away from? Is gonna be after school being pulled away from the kids, extra curriculum activity, like, what's being pulled? Where's this extra money coming from to allocate for these new projects that are being done? I just want to know.
Dr. Talbot?
And is this being shared to the public? Do families, parents in the district know how their children are going to be impacted?
Dr. Talbot?
Sure. So in 2023, the voters approved a capital project. And that capital project that you may have heard about tonight, that's $4 million. That's money already appropriated under capital projects to do the work at the middle school. So that work would pull nothing away from students in terms of programs or services. The budget that is being proposed to the public on May 20th for a vote, in that budget, there are a reduction of 2 teaching staff due to low enrollment in the elementary school and on the secondary level with science. There were the reduction of teaching assistants on the 2nd and 3rd grade levels. And most of those teaching assistants will be reappropriated in staffing and other positions in the district. In terms of busing, there are late buses that were scaled back for athletics. And we are certainly looking at that in terms of how we can provide support. So in terms of programs and services, those are the areas that this budget has impacted. And if I've left anything out, please fill in the gap.
It maintains almost all programs.
Okay. And that's also for special education as well too, right?
That's also for special education.
We also have funding for summer school for the kids.
Yes,
right? For this school year.
yes,
Extended school year for special education and for regular gen ed.
yes.
Okay. As far as transportation for children in special education, is that being impacted next school year? And the reason I'm asking is because it was brought to my attention by many parents that the district doctor needs to approve transportation for special education children when they're doing their CSE meetings.
So give me your specific question.
My specific question is special education transportation being impacted for the next school year?
So special education
Children,
transportation.
with special needs,
Right,
door to door.
right. There are some changes based upon some decisions at CSE and some IEP changes. on bus transportation.
Okay, can we know what those changes are?
It's a case-by-case basis based upon the decision of the CSE.
Who's,
But-
who's making those decisions? Like, who's approving for busing for special education for a child? Is that the district's doctor doing that? Because parents are being told that they have to get a letter from their doctor, and the district doctor has to oversees that. And then the doctor determines if that child, the district's doctor determines if that child is required for busing. Is that the protocol?
For medical conditions, that would be the protocol. So if a student were receiving busing because of an asthma condition, the doctor would submit a note that is reviewed by our district doctor, and those are submitted annually.
I get that part for medical,
Right. That would be the only time.
but not any other time if a child's in special education for behavior or anything
No,
else
the
on that
CSE would
IEP.
make those determinations.
Okay, so the CSC would ask parents to get a doctor's note to see if their child needs transportation? Because that's what's being done. I'm just trying to understand, like, what's the protocol? How is this being conducted? Is this because of the budget? Because this is all new. It wasn't happening before.
So Dr. Talbot, is there any way that we could just get more information on this? And then, if, we have the question, so therefore, if you can look into it and just get more information and give it back to the board so we can have a better understanding if this is something that's being, that's occurring.
So I do want to just clarify that the district is not cutting special ed services to save money. I want to clarify that. Decisions in the special education department is being made through the CSE process and what is on the IEP. Has the special education department been asked to review each IEP? Yes. And so they are going through a process of peeling back layers, asking a series of questions, getting documentation that verifies a decision for, to be made to meet the needs of students. But in no way are any decisions should be made or are being made to save money on the backs of students.
Okay, while they're doing their investigation of decisions that were made prior for busing for children, is that their IEP stays the same while they're doing their investigation, or they're removing busing from children's IEP prior to that CSE meeting? So when they're giving you a new update of a CSE meeting, a new IEP, the transportation is not on there anymore without a decision being made collectively during the CSE meeting.
Yeah, can we just look
Yeah.
into it? Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just asking Dr. Talbot to look into this to get more information for us. So
Okay.
therefore we can provide a better response.
Okay.
to you.
Where can parents go and find out information? Because as the board, you're making decisions that there's some research, or you gotta do your investigation of the busing for special education, and the CSE is asking thorough questions about who gets approved and who doesn't get approved. Where is those resources for parents?
I'm going to give that back to Dr. Talbot in terms of who they would need to go speak to.
So parents are a part of the CSC, and the point person is our director of special ed and PPS.
Yes, but parents are not being informed of a new transition that's currently taking place as far as like the investigation that's going on children's IEP to determine what qualifies them for transportation, right? So parents are walking in blindly.
They
into
can
that
they can
meeting.
have advocates. I don't know if this
Yeah,
district
they
has
can-
advocates.
That's
They
true.
have
They can, they
advocates,
have
yeah.
LIAC, they have all, they
Mhm.
can have advocate. You're right about that. However, they are walking in blindly of
Understood.
decisions that are being made with the
So-
district and the public, parents that have children in special education is not made aware of that.
Well, I think it was about a meeting or so ago that the CSE, the annual reviews were approved by this board, by the majority of this board.
Oh, what I would suggest is two things. What I would suggest is, one, because I hear your question. Your question is, where do the parents go for support? You do understand that they can have an advocate. So what?
No, where do parents go to,
For-
to find out what's being done with transportation
So-
during a CSC meeting? How do they prepare themselves? No, okay, so if you have a family that's been in the district for a while and there was a protocol that was followed usually, and now things are being changed, right, for whatever reasons, how do parents know this? If they're not coming
Okay.
into the board, they're not here tonight, right? How are parents made informed of it?
All right, so we hear your question. I'm going to give it to Dr. Talbot and ask her to, we'll get your, to
can I-
follow up with you. So
can I just-
let's get, I think we have your information, we have your name, we have your phone number, so we'll allow Dr. Talbot to get that information and communicate back to you, but also update the board as
Well,
well.
can I just ask a question? The parents are having legal notices of these reviews, right? The annual reviews,
Right, they get-
right, Mary?
But I think what her
Then
question
not
is.
just the notice of the meeting.
No, I think what
Right.
what you're asking is where do I get where does a parent get the resources? Where does a parent get the information ahead of time that transportation hypothetically is changing? So when
Correct.
they walk into the meeting, they
Correct.
walk in with information that there's a possibility that in this meeting, there may be changes to
Correct.
this CSE based on A, B, and C.
Aren't you,
So
Correct.
I would say let Dr.
Because
Talbot.
it's a CSE meeting is about the child, so everyone should be on the same page.
So let
It
Doc-
shouldn't be us versus them versus us.
Right, so let Dr. Talbot look into it, get the information. So therefore, if there needs to be clarity that needs to be provided to the parents, then that needs to take place. If there's additional resources that need to be provided to the parents, that needs to take place. So allow her to look into this, update us, and also update you. So if there's something that needs to be changed, then it's something that can be changed.
Right, not just me, parent.
Yeah, no, I
Every-
understand. Yeah, I understand what
Okay,
you're saying.
thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie Andrews. I just want to clarify about the open meetings law. Of course, you wouldn't expose anything that would imperil a police officer. You wouldn't expose certain you're going to purchase because it's going to cost the district more. Remember, these are all allowable, not mandated. As far as the IEP, I find it very concerning. I've been to like 5 or 6 meetings now, and Chris in particular, and I think a few others, have questioned, are we cutting services for special ed? I find that very odd that he would keep thinking that. I just want this board to be aware that you have a fiduciary responsibility that if someone is giving you information, and I have information that similar things that this woman just said is happening, and we all know CSE meetings, the boards just rubber stamp. They really don't review them. They just say, okay. And CSE meetings are run by the people who are overseen by administration. And if there's another agenda that's not in the interest of the child, they do meetings where parents are not necessarily notified. If you have information that may be happening, then that's why at least I think 3 meetings, you have questioned that, which I found odd as a board member of 9 years and one who attended for 15 years. So you have a responsibility to go into executive session, speak with the attorney without administration, and get to the bottom of that. Because if that's happening, and what I've heard, I don't like what I've heard. 1, because it's not right for the child. And 2, as a taxpayer, I'll be paying that lawsuit when you lose it, because the board will lose it, because there will be enough evidence to support the positions of parents like this lady that they're not being informed as a parent. And I don't care there's a parent advocate. Anybody who's involved with special ed knows the parent advocate advocates for their own child and basically doesn't really buck administration. They do a little chest bumping to make it look like they're doing their job. We all know how it works, because that's basically how it goes everywhere. They seem to get what they need and other parents don't, just like this woman, just like other people. How come their buses have been changed? If it's based on an IEP, you better have a medical evaluation why that bus is no longer needed. Because if they have a one-to-one, they can't walk home, period. No exceptions to that. I'm a nurse 43 years. I want to know what medical improvement happened in a school that the one-to-one now can walk home by themselves. Nothing you could ever tell me. So I advise the board to meet an executive session with your attorney, because this firm, believe it or not, has a few attorneys who did that. They advocated for the special ed people, and they are well-versed in that law. And they need to advise you what your fiduciary responsibility as well as what your legal responsibility is to get to the bottom of a problem. Look at what happened with Bernagazi in that district. That got pushed under by a board for how many years, and how many kids were exposed needlessly, allegedly, based on the articles in the paper. Why? Because the board thought what they were doing was okay. It's not. You have a responsibility beyond what you think you have. You need to start exercising that. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other community comments? Dr. Talbot, you want to do your superintendent report?
Good evening. We have just a few updates for the board and the community. Testing, our AP exams are underway district-wide, and students are truly demonstrating their hard work and preparation. We're grateful to our teachers and AP coordinators for their dedication in this matter, and testing concludes next week. NISA SLAT testing is also taking place in these 2 weeks. Our multilingual learners in grades K through 12 are taking the NISA SLAT, New York State English as a Second Language Achievement Test. And this test is administered each spring, and it assesses their language proficiency in English. Regents reviews, our secondary schools are shifting focus to Regents and final exam preparation. Teachers are providing review resources and targeted support, and Regents Week begins in mid-June. Summer programming and planning. We are excited to offer a variety of academic and enrichment programs this summer, including Summer Academic Success at the high school. This program provides the opportunity for students to take courses that are graduation requirements. Students will be able to complete credits and take the required exams. ESY, Special Education Extended School Year. This program is for students who IEPs list 12-month instruction. The service is provided for students who are at risk for significant regression during the school year. Science and Reading Enrichment. This program is for students entering grades K through 8. It will focus on science investigations that will engage our students and encourage critical thinking. In Development, a summer arts experience program that will provide students in grades 3 through 12 with 2 days of arts enrichment activities. A sports and physical education program will promote injury prevention for athletes as well as general physical fitness. Program details and registration links will be sent to families before the end of May. This summer, we will be offering a Teacher Summer Institute, which will run in July and August. Offerings will be based on responses to the Professional Learning Survey, but some topics may include data-driven instruction, formative assessment, restorative practices, classroom management, technology integration in the classroom, artificial intelligence teaching strategies. Staff members will receive professional learning credits in accordance with contractual agreements. We're proud to support our educators' growth and collaborative planning for the 25-26 school year. Scheduling for the 25-26 school year. Scheduling teams in each building are finalizing their master schedules and staff assignments. Yesterday, parents of all students who will be at the high school next year received a Parent Square communication with a list of the courses their child has selected for the next school year. Parents are encouraged to review the document and contact their child's school counselor with any questions. Students in both buildings will receive their schedules over the summer. School climate and district initiatives. In the fall, we collected baseline data on culture and climate surveys. Survey collection for the end of year from students, staff, and families will begin next week. This data will inform improvements to school culture, safety, and family engagement. I'd like to take a moment to make a parent alert regarding a dangerous TikTok trend involving school Chromebooks. Well, what is happening? A new TikTok trend is encouraging students to tamper with or damage school-issued Chromebooks. Some videos encourage students to force objects like paper clips into the device to purposely cause a short circuit, which could result in a spark and/or a fire. Also, trying to bypass school internet restrictions, removing keys, taking apart devices, or installing unauthorized software. Parents, these actions are not harmless. They are dangerous and they violate school policy and can lead to suspensions or disciplinary action, costly device repairs or replacement, loss of technology privileges, or legal or financial consequences. There have been dangerous episodes at various schools across the island of Chromebooks catching fire in classrooms. What can we do? We can talk to our children, discuss the risk and the consequences, set clear expectations, and let's stay informed about these trends that our children are being exposed to. We want to encourage everyone to participate in the annual budget vote, which is May 20th. The Board of Education election will also take place on Tuesday, May 20th from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Voting locations are Northeast Elementary and Amityville Memorial High School. End of the year events. Our spring concerts and art shows continue this week and next. Northwest hosts their second grade shows tomorrow. Edmund W. Miles Middle School will share their music and art at the high school on Monday evening, and the high school art show and spring concert will be held on Wednesday, May 21st. Our district art showcase is May 22nd. Memorial Day recess. Schools are closed May 23rd through the 27th. Senior Awards Night is June 11th. Moving up ceremonies are June 24th, 25th, and our high school graduation is June 28th. We look forward to celebrating these milestones, and we encourage the board and community to join us at these important events. There were a few questions from the May 7th meeting that I was able to capture, and one question was, what is the status of the 4410 program? We have followed up and we remain under conditional approval, and we'll touch base again next week for a status update on the approval process. They offered us limited information, but they know that we are requesting expedited feedback. Another question was, is the regular education budget code, DIP, a result of accessing teachers? The budget dip is a reflection of retirees and attrition. Only one elementary teacher and one secondary science teacher are being accessed in the 25-26 budget as a result of decreased enrollment. The next question, how much does a seat cost per pupil on a private or parochial bus? And do we pay per seat or by hour? We pay by hour, and the amount differs based on the capacity of the vehicle. That concludes our superintendent's report, and the middle school play is Friday. What is Friday's date? May 16th at 7 p.m. And it's also on Saturday, May 17th at 7 p.m. It's going to be a delightful play, a wonderful production. Please come out and support our middle school scholars. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Talbot. I just also want to just take a moment to say that this is going to be Ms. Pawazzi's last school board meeting. I mean, we also have the meeting on election night, but this is her last school board meeting. So thank you for your time here in the district, and we wish you the best in your future endeavors. So thank you for everything that you've done.
Lisa, can I please ask a question before we close the meeting?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to follow up on the parents' concerns. I just want to be clear on our next steps because we did have the CSE, CPSE recommendations in front of us the night that we had adopted the budget. And Wendy, Caroline, and I all voted no, and we voiced concerns that it wasn't clear that all the parents even knew and had agreed to the recommendations in that file. So I just wanted to be clear as to what we're saying is our next steps.
The next steps is that we ask Dr. Talbot to look into and give us feedback to us as a board, as well as this particular parent that can go to other parents, as to a couple of things. One is, what are the resources a parent can obtain prior to that CSC meeting? So for example, if there's changes in transportation, just using as an example, then that parent knows prior to coming in that there may be they're proposing changes in the transportation. What would the resources that parent have prior to coming in to advocate for maintaining the transportation, for example, versus coming into the meeting being told that the transportation is taking place? I believe that was, just for clarity, I believe that was one thing that was going to be followed up on. So that
I
was.
think council might want to jump in.
So go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think if we may need a executive session discussion regarding special education,
Okay.
so I can give legal advice as to what the responsibilities of the district and the board are. That might be useful.
All right, so do we want to
Okay.
do it tonight?
I'll be here Tuesday. I'll be here the day of the vote.
So if we won't, we'll work out a time in terms of getting together, but it may have to be, we have to figure out the time and when to do it. But yes.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to plan an executive session so we can talk about this. Thank you very much.
Right, and the board also does need to, we definitely probably just need to plan a meeting because we need to follow back up from our meeting yesterday with the superintendent evaluation as to our next step. So it may be beneficial to set a meeting and go from there. All right, all those have a motion to adjourn the meeting at
Motion.
10:54. Winnie
Aye.
Canestro, Carol Seoff, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.